host. Welcome to Noah's Nest. I'm James TheIdolSmasher at yahoo.com. Our host and producer, Reuven Goldstein, and glad to have you here. This is a weekly Parsha reading. The Parsha, for those of you watching this for the first time, the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, are broken up into weekly readings. That start after Rosh Hashanah, go all the way through till, after Yom Kippur, and then we read it all year round. And then after Yom Kippur, we start it over. So this week's reading will take us, which is a good chunk of a reading, lots and lots and lots of stuff going on. So you want to stay tuned. We're going to go from Exodus 25 to 27, verse 19. That is the Parsha. If you are watching this and expecting, if we've had a Tuesday focus study group, we're not going to be doing that as a regular thing. We'll be doing some other focus study groups, but as far as a regular structured, you can count on us being here. Noah's Nest is the place to be. And if anything else comes up, we'll let you know. If you want to know what's going on with the Parsha readings, you want to get involved in it, you like what you see here, feel free to get in touch with me or this channel, which would be either me or Reuven, Reuven Goldstein, and we'll take care of you. How's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
How's everybody doing tonight?
I'm good. Awesome,
Wonderful.
man. Ready to rock and roll. Go ahead.
Let's just make a real quick decision here. Democracy in action in a nice communal setting. And I'll start with Ermine. Ermine, how do you want to read tonight? What would you suggest, my lady?
I would love to read the chapter and then do Q&A. That's my 2 cents.
Everybody like that? Like them?
Yeah, I don't mind.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, I guess I'll start us off, unless anybody else wants to start off. Questions or comments?
Oh, I have a question. Is this going to be a whole bunch of laws again?
A lot of building.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna build the first house for God.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
And yeah, it's gonna be laws. Sweeten it first. You'll get the tart later. You get the sour later. Okay, or the hardcore. Anyway, let's just do this. We'll get into it. This is Parsha Terumah. We're in Shemos, the book of Exodus, chapter 25, verse 1. Hashem spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel and let them take for me a portion. From every man whose heart motivates him, you shall take my portion. This is the portion that you shall take from them: gold, silver, and copper, and turquoise, purple, and scarlet wood, linen and goat hair, red dyed ram's skin, tachash skins, acacia wood, oil for illumination, spices for the anointment oil and aromatic incense, shahom, stones and stones for the settings, for the ephod and the breastplate. They shall make a sanctuary for me, so that I may dwell among them. Like everything that I show you, the form of the tabernacle, and the form of all its vessels, and so shall you do. They shall make an ark of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits in its length, 1.5 cubits its width, and 1.5 cubits its height. You shall cover it with pure gold. From within, from without, shall you cover it, and you shall make on it a gold crown all around. You shall cast for it 4 rings of gold, and place them on its 4 corners, 2 rings on its one side, and 2 rings on its second side. You shall make staves of acacia wood, and cover them with gold, and insert the staves in the rings on the sides of the ark, with which to carry the ark. The staves shall remain in the rings of the ark, they may not be removed from it. You shall place in the ark the testimonial tablets that I shall give you. You shall make a cover of pure gold, 2.5 cubits its length, and 1.5 cubits its width. You shall make 2 cherubim of gold. Hammered out shall you make them from both ends of the cover. You shall make 1 cherub from the end at one side, and 1 cherub from the end at the other. From the cover shall you make the cherubim at its 2 sides. The cherubim shall be with wings spread upward, sheltering the cover with their wings, with their faces toward one another. Toward the cover shall be the faces of the cherubim. You shall place the cover and the ark from above, and into the ark shall you place the testimonial tablets that I shall give you. It is there that I will set my meetings with you, and I shall speak with you from atop the cover, from between the 2 cherubim that are on the ark of the testimonial tablets, everything that I shall command you to the children of Israel. You shall make a table of acacia wood, 2 cubits its length, 2 cubits its width, and 1.5 cubits its height. You shall cover it with pure gold, and you shall make for it a gold crown all around. You shall make for it a molding of 1 handbreadth all around, and you shall make a gold crown on the molding all around. You shall make for it 4 rings of gold, and place the rings upon the 4 corners of its 4 legs. The rings shall be opposite the molding, as housing for staves to carry the table. You shall make the staves of acacia wood, and cover them with gold, and the table shall be carried through them. You shall make its dishes, its spoons, its shelving tubes, and its pillars, with which it shall be covered of pure gold shall you make them. On the tablet shall you place showbread for me always. You shall make a menorah of pure gold. Hammered out shall the menorah be made. Its base, its shaft, its cups, its knobs, and its blossoms shall be hammered from it. 6 branches shall emerge from its sides, 3 branches of the menorah on its one side, and 3 branches of the menorah on its second side. 3 cups engraved like almonds, on one branch, a knob and a flower, and 3 cups engraved like almonds on the next branch, a knob and a flower. So for the 6 branches that emerge from the menorah, and on the menorah shall be 4 cups engraved like almonds, its knobs and its flowers. A knob shall be under 2 of the branches from it, a knob under 2 of the branches from it, and a knob under 2 of the branches from it, for the 6 branches emerging from the menorah. Their knobs and branches shall be of it, all of it a single hammered piece of pure gold. You shall make its lamps 7. He shall kindle its lamps so as to give light. He shall kindle its lamps so as to give light toward its face. Its tongs and its spoons shall be of pure gold. Of a talent of pure gold shall he make it. With all these vessels, see and make according to their form that you are shown on the mountain.
Well done. Wasn't as painful as I thought it was going to be. Any questions? Anyone got anything for us?
All I gotta say is God likes some bling. What? Wow.
Making it happen.
So, it's quite precise in this one, too. Okay, quick question. He likes arcs, he likes cherubims, he likes sevens, he likes gold. Can you give me a little bit of setup? I mean, I'm glad that the Israelites left Egypt with all the gold that they had, because you weren't lying when they said they'd need it to build whatever was coming next. Because this sounds like, wow.
Yeah. It is wow. Well, let's just, I'll read the opening commentary to kind of get us moving along. I'm trying to find a picture of a menorah to put up on the screen. I'll get to that in a bit. The tabernacle, a resting place for God's presence, which is also capitalized. With the exception of the tragic incident of the golden calf, the rest of the book of Exodus is devoted to the preparations for and the construction of the Mishkan. Is it Mishpav in Hebrew? Is it how we pronounce it?
Sorry, bro, you lost me on that one. Go ahead.
I was reading the, I was hoping Reuven would know. Yes, okay. All right. The Mishkan, literally the dwelling place, or the tabernacle. Even the account of the golden calf is not unrelated to the tabernacle, for according to Sforno, the very construction of the tabernacle was made necessary only because of Israel's lapse into virtual idolatry. He maintains that ideally no temple should have been needed after the revelation at Sinai, because the entire nation achieved the level of prophecy and every Jew was worthy of the Shekinah, the divine presence, to rest upon him, as it later did in the tabernacle and the temple. Only after Israel toppled from that high level of spirituality as a result of the worship of the golden calf did it become necessary for it to have a central sanctuary. Okay. Indeed, Rashi comments that the instructions regarding the erection of the tabernacle were transmitted only after the incident of the golden calf. The fact that they are given in this chapter is an instance of the common principle that the Torah is not always written in chronological order in which the events occurred. And there's a lot of that, actually. There's the whole red heifer is a prime example, and for good reason, too. We'll get to that. The commandments regarding the tabernacle are given here because the tabernacle and the Sanhedrin, the seats of so-called ritual and law, are interrelated. The headquarters of the Sanhedrin stood on the Temple Mount, and the instructions for erecting the tabernacle were inscribed right after the civil laws of Mishpatim, because in Judaism the laws of temple offerings and those of bondsmen and dangerous livestock are equally expressions of God's will. I don't know, Brett, if you saw last week's, or Brandon, I'm not sure if you're here either, but last week when we got into the laws, it started with the, if you will, slave or the servant, the rights of the servant, and it went from there. So when we give the law, you always start with the lowest or the most needy in your midst. Start with their law first, because they have equal rights as everybody else. But just throwing that out there. Thus, a major part of Exodus, which Rambam calls the Book of Redemption, discusses the tabernacle. He explains that the redemption from Egypt was not complete with the physical departure from the land of Israel's enslavement, nor was it complete even with the giving of the Ten Commandments. Even though the revelation at Sinai was the goal of Exodus, the Exodus had not achieved its purpose until the heights that the nation had achieved temporarily at Sinai were made a permanent part of existence by means of the tabernacle. For Ramban, the Nachmanides, shows in his commentary that the tabernacle as a whole and in its many parts was symbolic of the historic experience at Sinai. So too it was from the holy ark that God spoke to Moses, just as he had spoken from atop Mount Sinai when giving him the Torah. In this light, the tabernacle was intended to be the central rallying point of the nation, ringed by the tribes. There we go. Ringed by the tribes and topped by the clouds of God's presence, and the place to which every Jew would go with the offerings through which he hoped to elevate himself spiritually. The function of the tabernacle in the wilderness was carried forward by the temple in Jerusalem. Throughout the long and bitter exile, which alternates between grinding oppression and spiritually debilitating affluence, the centrality of God's presence is represented by the miniature sanctuaries, that's Ezekiel, of synagogues and study halls. That's from Megillah. For it is in them and through them that Jews hark back to the sounds of Sinai and the radiance of the temple.
Okay. So you mean to tell me they're still wandering?
Oh yeah, we haven't begun to wander. We're technically right now, although we're getting the story first, we have not left Sinai.
Oh,
We haven't had the golden calf incident yet.
That's what I thought. I was like, I think I missed a week. That's what was going through my head. But oh wow.
The red heifer is mentioned before God asks for it. You'll see that another time too. Moses says, "Take me out of your book," and there's an actual book right before that where Moses isn't even mentioned. Once in the entire book, or chapter, I should say. Which are, it's the Parsha before, I think, where his name's never mentioned once. There's a lot of neat things like that. That was a great picture, Reuven, you put up.
Really helpful.
That's about what it looked like, apparently.
And what's this cloud of fire? I mean, this...
Fire by night, cloud by day.
That's literal?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that it was with them through the whole time. I thought it was only while they were getting chased by the Egyptians.
And you got to remember that needs to be packed up and moved when they need to get going too. So imagine packing that all up and moving that.
That's what I was saying. That's why I'm like, oh my gosh.
May I put out a point on this particular issue, if you guys don't mind? I don't know if you've ever heard of this concept before, but I've looked at some of the passages where it speaks of this particular thing that we're looking at, and it also talks about it says the mountains waxed and such, and this has brought some people to the concept of were they heading towards like a volcano or something. Have you ever heard this concept?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people say that's a volcano god. Even though it descended from the mountain, or descended to the mountain from above, they still say it came from that it ascended upwards.
All right, I have a great verse 8. Actually,
Could have been a volcano. I don't know. Verse 8.
Unless anyone has one before verse 8.
This is from here on out. We're doing jazz. So let's make some music.
Yeah, what you got for us?
Wait a minute, you're on air. You're not mixing anything.
Huh?
Say that again?
You're on air. You better not mix anything.
Oh, we'll get
it shut down. You'll get your video taken down.
Well, I don't hope we don't get that mixed up when we get the video shut down.
What's your question about verse 8, my lady?
Okay. It was just, actually, I just thought it was a beautiful way of saying, because he says that I may dwell among them. Let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. There's a couple of things that brings up. One is he's being quite comforting and getting close to them, but also, so is he? It almost feels like at times he's not there. That's all.
Oh, that's a good question. Good question. Yeah, I mean, isn't God supposed to be with us all the time?
Yeah, and I don't know if they live. Yeah, I just don't. It's just interesting. Yeah.
Vashkun? I don't know. I keep wanting to read Hebrew, and I still have a way to go. With no vowels, that doesn't help either. The verb that I may dwell, is the one from which the word Shekinah, that's the rabbinic term for the divine presence, is derived. So from that verse there, that I may dwell, is the divine presence, is where they get the word for it. I thought that was interesting. Dwell among them. Here in the I'm also not only I'm reading, by the way, the reading of a lot of it will come from, and I plug this every Nexus, the Stone Edition Chumash. It is worth every cent. That's backwards. I apologize. It's worth every cent that you might of the $30 you'll pay. You'll get enough knowledge and just a wealth of ooey gooey, Torah goodness. It's wonderful. And to show you that again in English and Hebrew. There you go. And I'm also reading commentary from the Hertz edition.
Okay.
Chumash. Dwell among them. Note that the Torah does not say that I may dwell in it, but among them, i.e., in the midst of the people. The sanctuary is not the dwelling place of God.
Okay.
See Kings 8:27. It is the symbol of that holiness which was to be the rule of life for the Israelites. If His Spirit was to abide in the community, they were to hold themselves aloof from everything that was defiling, because God was amongst them. That's in that Leviticus. The sanctuary was therefore the fountain of holiness for the congregation of Israel.
Okay.
A memory.
That's good. I have more questions, so that answered it, though.
Speak.
All right. Testimony. Talk about the testimony in verse 16 that he's about to give on.
The Ten Commandments.
I am so out of order. I gotta quit reading this stuff out of order. Okay.
The neat thing about the tablets, we've mentioned this before. Yeah, there were no volcanoes at Sinai. No volcanoes in the Sinai. Just Reuven pointed that out. I wanted to bring that up. Reuven is a typer, so we try to relay the wisdom of the typed word here. The tablets were not the round, flat, with carved out in stone. First, they were made of sapphire. You'll remember from last week's Parsha that when the 70 elders gazed upon the form of the Lord, it was a river of sapphire that was beneath him, or beneath it. It's also said that Moses dug straight down from where he pitched his tent to get the sapphire. So they were sapphire, they were cube. The first ones, I'm not sure if they were hewn. The second ones were. But from any side, anywhere, you could read the text. The text was actually written within the sapphire itself. And from any angle or any direction, you could look at them and read exactly, and read the law.
Wow.
That's the evidence of the divine covenant. There was nothing in the ark save the 2 tablets of stone. The imageless inmost shrine was a continuous proclamation of the spirituality of God, the knowledge that in the holiest part of the sanctuary was deposited nothing but the original tablets of the law. Would ever impress the Israelites with the thought that the moral laws engraved on them constituted the conditions of the covenant between God and Israel. And the reason why the second ones were hewn is because the remnants of the originals that were shattered were placed inside them. So when you carried the ark, the original rested inside the second set. Hello, Aberon, or Fox. Shalom, welcome aboard. We're in Exodus 25, and we're just discussing it. We'll move on to the rest of it a little later.
All right, I have a bone to pick. Why does God need another ark?
You mean compared to Noah's?
Yeah, well, what is this ark for?
To carry the tablets of testimony.
But why an ark? That's got to be the most, like, inconvenient thing to do that. Why not a chariot or something with wheels?
Reuven says the ark, tabah, is important imagery for God. Remember, ark, and the word ark's root word is the word, or is the same, or is the word word in Hebrew.
Yeah, I know, I agree with that, but I thought like an ark was something that was like a chest, like, you know, ark, you know what I mean? And I'm just thinking, I got these big bad tablets. Yikes.
It's just 2 arms length.
Of sapphire!
Oh, yeah.
They're square!
Right?
Okay, I'll leave it alone. I just was thinking there's some easier way. And then lastly, what's the cherubim? What?
I want to remind you also that it's not God who needs them. It's the Israelites.
Oh, I agree.
God already showed up. They need this. Maybe it was solid and heavy and of pure gold to, you know, the weight of the law. You know.
No,
honor and burden.
It definitely has some staying power. I'm not gonna doubt what he made the law out of. I just meant what he made it out of to carry it with. Okay, that's my 2 cents. The last thing is the cherubim. I don't understand the importance of these little creatures.
Cherubim guard the way to the tree of life. They're creatures. They're mission-specific creatures. I had a bone to pick at one time with my rabbi, Rabbi Reamer. I had a bone. Why no engraven images? And yet we got cherubim. He said nothing on the.
Oh, you just muted yourself. You just muted.
Fox, why are you muting people, brah? Come on, man.
You must have done it by accident.
All right. I know you're muted.
Yeah, I could tell. How long was I muted for?
You started with you had a bone to pick and.
Oh yeah, why are we making cherubims, engraven images of cherubims? And he said, well, it's not in the heavens and the water and the air, is it? You ever seen a cherubim? I was like, no. I said, okay, there you go. I don't know much about the cherubim. Let's see. Do you have any commentary in your Hirsch or anything, J-Dubs?
All I know is that they're supposed to represent, depending on what they are, represent either good or bad, destruction or creation.
Huh.
That the cherubim in the Garden of Eden are destructive angels. I can't see that, Reuven. If you're trying to show us something, it's blurry.
They're like walls around the ark. Yeah, it is blurry.
And the cherubim here are protective cherubim, protective, so that means like good, or and it's supposed to represent you know how we are as to be people, like we have the possibility of being you know, righteous or wicked. So is there something, I don't know if there's anything in particular
that's
you're
really
looking for.
That's really interesting, J-Dubs, because both cherubim are bowed on the ark.
Right.
You know? And even good and evil bow to the same creator. That's interesting. What I have here in the Hertz edition, apart from the mention of wings, there is no description offered to these emblematic figures. The Talmud, by a popular derivation of the Hebrew word, asserts that the cherubim had the faces of children. In biblical poetry, the cherubim are an emblem of God's nearness to man. or they're an emblem. Okay. Thus the psalmist speaks of God as enthroned upon the cherubim. That's Psalm 82, I think. When he invokes him to help his people, that is. He is not far off in the heavens and not powerless to aid, but the very present helper in the day of distress and trouble.
And what was that commentary on?
This was on the cherubim.
Okay.
Well, I guess it's a good time for a question, huh?
What you got?
I've often wondered, whenever we look at these passages about cherubim, why it is that some individuals have basically, from their point of view, cherubims are like these little babies. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, that's what they're represented as, yeah.
Cupid, big, chubby, rosy-cheeked baby.
I don't want to say anything mean to you, Reuven, but is that what you want to present to people as a text? Because that's horrible, bro.
Well, it just doesn't look. It's blurry. But
There it is. It took a second for here.
But then I can't talk trash in the text. So no, just kidding.
Yeah, we enjoy being able to be nasty over in text.
I would just say, if you have something worth saying, Reuven, just say it on the mic. Come on. But
yeah, you're reading the next chapter.
I thought I'm reading the next chapter.
I'm saying, yeah, you will.
Oh.
So what was your question, Brett? That the cherubim were what? Little fat, little Cupid things?
Well, I find it strange because there's nowhere, and I don't have a photographic memory, but I don't recall in any passages where it describes cherubims as being these cute little babies and stuff that are, kind of what you would. They represent as Cupid. You know what I mean? You just don't see it, and there's not even a lot of passages that describe them as having wings in many of these things. Most of them are manifestations of men. Now, if there's something I haven't noticed, feel free to correct me. I'm always willing to learn.
Yeah, I never studied much on them. That might be a good thing to go over. Is there any Jewish literature on cherubim? I'm sure there is. So it's kind of a silly question of me asking.
Looking for the cherubim literature. I would remind. Did you ever see the movie The Never-Ending Story, or did I just age myself?
Yeah, we're aged.
Okay. But there was these, like, he was passing into the final gates, like one of his final tests, and there was these two big stone statue things that were like facing each other and letting to light him up if he came through, and that's what I always thought cherubim would look like.
And I have a picture of them here in the book here. They just look like angels. I don't know if they will come out on the screen.
Hold on, put up a little higher.
By the way, the Never-Ending Story 1 was a fantastic movie. The sequels were horrible, and I would not recommend them. The final test that he took was actually himself, if you remember, though. Isn't that interesting? The reflection of his own fears.
Oh, wow. I don't remember that movie that well. But
There it is.
Well, I do. My children like to watch that often, so I get stuck watching it. And you know what? It's good. I learn something new every time I look at it.
My favorite name is The Woman Tail.
Large wings and faces of young children. The cherubim were not made separately and then attached to the cover. Instead, the entire cover, including the cherubim, had to be hammered out of one large ingot of gold.
Wow.
Wings of the cherubim must thrust upward, pointing toward the wings of the one on the opposite end of the cover, so that the four outspread wings formed a canopy that was 10 handbreadths over the cover.
Wow.
Well, there you go, right there. Isn't Satan, though, considered a... I believe I've read where he was also considered a cherubim. And by no way I'd think he'd look like a cute little baby, though, right?
No, he's an angel. I don't think he's a cherubim.
He's an archangel. He would be like the highest angel. Well, I should say the most sophisticated, because he has to deal with us. The angel of snow has probably got a much, I don't know, it seems like an angel of snow would have a much simpler job than the angel of testing goodness in humans.
I don't want to take things too far off topic or anything, but I was curious what your views were on the Watchers of the Apocrypha.
Oh, the rock monsters, like in the Noah movie?
No.
Oh,
I
no.
think they got a little bit too creative on that particular movie, even though it was a good one. I do dig me some Russell Crowe, but the Watchers, where they state that God uses certain angels, some to partake in speaking in a voice for him, as well as some being his eyes. Have you heard this connotation? Go ahead.
I
Yeah.
never read the Apocrypha. Sounds like good stuff, though.
Reuven put up a picture of Enoch a couple Parshas back, and it was quite a frightening sight.
Enoch?
He put a depiction of Enoch up, and it might have been a little bit too deep. We might have been getting a little too deep into the esoterica.
Oh,
There
yeah.
it is.
I remember.
Yeah, that's not cute right there. That thing looks like it's from Dark Souls, and it's ready to rock and roll.
Yep, that's the one who that's apparently the Kabbalistic legend is that Enoch, of course, God took Enoch after walking with him for 300 years. Not many people can do that at the time, and he would be the voice of the spiritual instructor of mankind. So anytime, God sends spiritual instruction, they're hearing the voice of Enoch. That would be the legend.
I got one more question for you on this particular issue. Do you think, from what you've read in your research and everything, that these angels took on this manifestation of having wings? Because it seems to me, with the powers and abilities that they have, or at least whatever power God's given to them, they do not require wings. So did they choose for some reason to appear this way?
I don't know about the wings. It might have been that might have been a later distortion of the cherubim on the ark. I mean, you can see Enoch there. I mean, I don't know about the wings.
Wait, if they don't have wings, how are we supposed to tell angels from human beings?
They're not supposed to. And angels don't have, genitalia either, so they don't have a lot of things.
They're covered, aren't they?
What is Reuven showing?
Oh, the 9 angelic classes.
I've heard that they don't have the parts, the toys, as someone would call it.
That's what I thought. Sorry, I'll shut up. Sorry, I cut you off.
Well, I was saying, yeah, I've heard many folks discuss that they didn't have the parts, but you guys obviously realize that whenever we look at the Old Testament, it states that angels somehow had the ability to biologically change themselves to be compatible with human beings.
Mm-hmm. What was Yeah, definitely. We have a talking ass coming up in a couple of parshas, and that's the first time the word Satan shows up in the Hebrew Bible, in the whole Torah.
Oh, you said talking ass. I thought we were going to talk about me for a little while. Go ahead.
No, this is not the Amazing Atheist fan club.
Here's some commentary on cherubim. Did we read this? I don't know if you read this, Idol. Cherubim have faces of male and female children and wings of birds. The wings are stretched upwards to teach that man is to rise above himself and upwards towards God. God's wisdom in itself is service. Their faces are face downward towards the ark to symbolize that the only true source of wisdom is Torah. That's interesting.
It is.
Yeah, I'll show the picture again of them. They're looking down and their wings are upwards, and their faces are down.
We have the table, which there's not really a good picture of the table. And there's the menorah. Now, the menorah is the menorah. See that tree of life over there?
Yeah.
Reuven showing?
Yeah.
The menorah is actually a teaching tool to learn that, because you'll notice that the central pillar and then the three candlesticks come out from the three seraphim on the side there, and that's why they're placed the way they are, and that's, you know, and it's a teaching. It's one of the teaching tools into the scientific or mystical, if you will. It's not really mystical. It's more as a more scientific Torah science teaching tool to learn that. I've just thought I'd throw that in there.
I like the archangel's name, Metatron. That reminds me of Megatron.
There's a movie called Dogma, which kind of reduces. It's, you know, it's very, very, very Catholic. It's made by Catholics, all stars Catholics, and it's about, and it's a kind of a hee-hee to the, you know, to the Catholic faith. It's called Dogma, but they're like superheroes almost. These, and the Metatron shows up. It's pretty neat if you ever get a chance to rent it. And if you know anything about the Catholic faith, it's a good laugh. It's a good-hearted, neat movie. According to Jewish medieval apocrypha, this is Reuven presenting to us from Wikipedia, the great Wikipedia. The Metatron, or Metatron, is an archangel in Judaism and in Christian folklore, as well as the Chancellor of Heaven, as effectively making Adramelech his infernal counterpart. According to Jewish medieval apocrypha, he is Enoch, ancestor of Noah, transformed into an angel. There are no references to Metatron as an angel in the Jewish or Christian scriptures. However, Genesis 5:24 is often cited as evidence of Enoch's bodily ascension to heaven. And Enoch walked with God, and he was gone, for God took him, or he was not. Although he is mentioned in a few brief passages in the Talmud, Metatron appears primarily in Jewish mystical texts as well, and other post-scriptural esoteric sources, such as the books of Enoch, Enoch 1, Book of Parables 2, Enoch, and the third Enoch. In rabbinic tradition, he is the highest of the angels and serves as the celestial. What's that?
That's right.
There you go.
Well, that's interesting. He kept the same job, but the yeah, that actually helps me like firm up some stuff on Enoch, because we had those questions and wanted to know. So wow.
Welcome to Torah Study.
That's kind of cool. It's true or not, I don't know, but that helps me, at least gives me some closure. Because I mean, that was like the one verse in all the Bible, and God took them, where I was like, what happened to Enoch? And I must have spent like 6 months of my life trying to figure that out, and little did I know there was a wiki.
The scribe of heaven.
I thought the top angel was Michael.
Got a strange question for you there, Idol, as well as Mr. Dubs. You ready? All right, just making sure that you guys are hearing me. I was curious, do you think that God created all the things that he had planned, or do you think that God is still creating as we speak?
Well, when in Genesis, the day, you know, the God resting, he was resting from creation, and in that creation itself would continue to create for itself. However, we see God intervening, but as far as creation, he rested from it because it could take itself on from there. It didn't need he created everything that everything the creation needed to continue recreation or reproduction, if you will, was done, and God didn't have to. God could, you know, the top was spinning, the machine was moving. You know, God didn't have to do anything more. So kind of both, because he does intervene, as we obviously see here in the story.
See, that's one of the things I always wondered when I heard that concept of created in his image. I always thought, obviously this must be speaking of his essence and his creativity. So just what you said, that's pretty much on the same line I look at it. Go ahead.
Yeah. You're a smart guy.
All right, you guys ready? Do any more questions on this chapter, or can we move on?
I'm reading what Fox had to say.
Oh,
It's a lot easier to say Fox, my friend. Yeah, good stuff. Reuven says, Jacob also became an angel according to the book Prayer of Joseph. Michael and Gabriel are Metatron's subordinates, along with the other 5 archangels, Ariel, Uriel, Raphael, etc. There's a lot on the menorah. Which might be kind of important. We understand the ark. We don't really get the ark. It wasn't nearly as didn't have the prestige in Hollywood that the ark does. Flames were fed by the purest oil of olive, symbolized the illumination of intellect. It was placed near the southern wall of the tabernacle, opposite the table on the north. The ark, hidden beyond the parochus, was equidistant from both. Thus, the ark, containing the Word of God, cast its spiritual emanations, as it were, upon the menorah and the table, which represented intellectual achievement and material prosperity. This symbolized the conviction that both our spiritual and temporal lives must be guided and work to serve the dictates of the Torah. Jewish life cannot be compartmentalized in the realms of sacred and temporal, nor in the modern vernacular, church and state. The Torah regulates all aspects of life and demands purity in all of them. Indeed, the requirement that the entire, very intricate menorah had to be hammered out of one ingot of gold symbolized the invisibility of Torah. A Jewish life must be constructed entirely from one set of values. It may not be a hodgepodge of separate bits and pieces grafted together to suit anyone's convenience. All areas of life must derive from the same set of values.
Well said there, Idol. I like that. Stop listening to those secularists, huh?
Here it is that the oral law also represents another dimension of Torah, the oral law that is the God-given companion of the written Torah. By using the principles and methodology taught to Moses at Sinai, man exercises his own creative, inquisitive abilities to derive new knowledge and apply eternal wisdom to new situations, just as the menorah's illumination was created by a man-made wicks, oil, and flame, so the oral Torah is man's contribution to the Torah itself. Yeah, like I said, there's an esoteric aspect to it.
Here's some commentary. This is awesome. The sages teach that the tabernacle symbolizes the 10 sayings that which God used to create the world. All of the elements that were used to create the tabernacle symbolizes the unification of all the elements. That's interesting. I like that.
The 10 utterances are on the tree of life, those circles that you see on the tree of life. Those are the 10 utterances that God spoke so that creation could come into being.
Got it. Hey, can you, Reuven, you want to pull up that tree of life, the 10 utterances again? Like an image of it? That.
I got one too.
Okay.
All right, well, there we go. There you go. Now we're cooking. Now Windows 7's catching up. All right, I'll screen share it here. Look to the one on the right.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see Kether, Chokmah, Binah, Chesed, Gabor. Those are the utterances.
Yeah, that's a really good chart there. Okay.
And you can see how the menorah, you would have the central stem, and then those 3 circles on the outside is where the menorah comes up from there. And that's when you light it a certain way, and
Mm-hmm.
When God speaks of he shall light them, he's speaking of the priests, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And that little thing I put up there, there's a lot of work into that. There's so much more. And that's kind of a hodgepodge of a few different ideas.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to think I'm showing you something that's you can just look at and kind of get. There's a lot to it. All right. Unless we've got any more on 26, I agree. We should sally forth.
Exodus chapter 26. Moreover, thou shalt make the tabernacle with 10 curtains, of fine twined line, and blue, and purple, and scarlet, and with cherubim, with work of the skillful workmen shalt thou make them. The length of each curtain shall be 8 and 20 cubits, and the breadth of each curtain 4 cubits, and the curtain shall have 1 measure. 5 curtains shall be coupled together one to another, and the other 5 curtains shall be coupled one to another. And thou shalt make loops of blue upon the edge of 1 curtain that is outmost in the first set, and likewise shalt thou make in the edge of the curtain that is outmost in the second set. 50 loops shalt thou make in 1 curtain, and 50 loops shalt thou make in the edge of the curtain that is the second set. The loops shall be opposite one another. And thou shalt make 50 clasps of gold, and couple the curtains one to another with the clasps, that the tabernacle may be one whole. And that shall make curtains of goat's hair for a tent over the tabernacle. 11 curtains shalt thou make them. The length of each curtain shall be 30 cubits, and the breadth of each curtain 4 cubits, and 11 curtains shall have 1 measure. And thou shalt couple 5 curtains by themselves, and 6 curtains by themselves, and shalt double over the 6th curtain in the front of the tent. And thou shalt make 50 loops on the edge of 1 curtain that is outmost in the first set, and 50 loops upon the edge of the curtain which is outmost in the second set. And thou shalt make 50 clasps of brass, and put the clasp into the loops, and couple the tent together, that it may be done one. And as for the overhanging part that remaineth of the curtains of the tent, the half curtain that remaineth over shall hang over the back of the tabernacle. And the cubit on the one side, and the cubit on the other side of that which remaineth over the length of the curtains of the tent, shall hang over the sides of the tabernacle, on the side and on that side to cover it. And thou shalt make a covering for the tent of ram skin, dyed red, with the covering of seal skins above. And thou shalt make the boards of the tabernacle of acacia wood, standing up. Acacia, okay. 10 cubits shall the length of the board, and a cubit and a half the breadth of each board. 2 tenons shall there be in each board, joined one to another. Thou shalt that make for all the board of the tabernacle. And thou shalt make the boards of the tabernacle 20 boards for the south side southward. And thou shalt make 40 sockets of silver under the 20 boards, 2 sockets under one board for its 2 tenons, and 2 sockets under another board for its 2 tenons. And for the second side of the tabernacle on the north side, 20 boards. And for the 40 sockets of silver, 2 sockets under one board and 2 sockets under another board. And for the hinder part of the tabernacle westward shalt thou make 6 boards, and 2 boards shalt thou make for the corners of the tabernacle in the hinder part, and they shall be double beneath, and in like manner they shall be complete unto the top thereof unto the first ring. Thus shall it be for them both. They shall be for the 2 corners. Thus there shall be 8 boards, and their sockets of silver, 16 sockets, 2 sockets under one board and 2 sockets under another board. And thou shalt make bars of acacia wood, 5 for the boards of the one side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars for the boards on the other side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars for the boards on the side of the tabernacle for the hinder part westward. And the middle bar of the midst of the boards, which shall pass through from end to end. And thou shalt overlay the boards with gold, and make their rings of gold for holders for the bars. And thou shalt overlay the bars with gold. And thou shalt rear up the tabernacle according to the fashion thereof, which hath been shown thee in the mount. And thou shalt make a veil of blue and purple and scarlet and fine twined linen. With the cherubim, with work of the skillful workman shall it be made. And thou shalt hang it upon 4 pillars of acacia overlaid with gold, their hooks being of gold, upon 4 sockets of silver. And thou shalt hang up the veil under the clasp, and shalt bring in thither within the veil of the ark of the testimony. And the veil shall be divided unto you between the holy place and the most holy. And thou shalt put the ark cover upon the ark of the testimony in the most holy place. And thou shalt set the table without the veil, and the candlestick over against the table on the side of the tabernacle towards the south, and thou shalt put the table on the north side. And thou shalt make a screen for the door of the tent of blue and purple and scarlet and fine twined linen, the work of the weaver in colors. And thou shalt make for the screen 5 pillars of acacia, and overlay them with gold. Their hooks shall be of gold, and they shall cast 5 sockets of brass for them. That's
Oof. That was rough.
I need to point out something, Idol, and I hope it's not an issue as well as Reuven, because I believe Reuven is the host. I did put a link out for people that I felt might learn from what we're talking about. However, I do notice that a couple individuals I wasn't actually targeting to come in have come into the room. So this is not like some kind of let's fight and see who's the smartest jackass room. This is a room where we are discussing the Bible. Just letting you know the Torah. Go ahead.
All jackasses are equal here.
Good to know.
Yeah, I just want to point out in the Chumash, when you say brass, we get copper.
Oh, interesting. That actually makes more sense, copper. Oh.
Welcome, shalom, everybody. Glad to have you here. Noachide Nexus. We're on Exodus 26, and we get the Hebrew take on the Hebrew Bible, which is a lot more fun. So, questions? Welcome to everybody here. I will do my best. We're hoping to get a couple of folks in here who are far more Torah steeped than we. We shall see if they arrive.
What exactly is the Torah?
The Torah is the 5 book, referred to as the Pentateuch, or the 5 books of Moses.
Okay.
This is what came down at Sinai, at the Sinai event. That's actually, Torah means teaching in Hebrew. That's what Torah means. Teaching.
All right. Fair enough. I'm assuming Genesis is in those books?
Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy.
Okay. I kind of figured they'd be all Old Testaments.
Yeah. The Hebrew. This is the pure Hebrew.
The only Testament.
When we read, I don't know if I can show you this on here. I'll give you an example of how we kind of learn it, the format. Oh, okay, maybe that's.
Yeah, because like every language has its own dialect.
This is the actual writing of the Torah. This is over here is commentary, and then under here is commentary on the commentary.
Okay.
So that's kind of how we read it. We'll read it in English. It's pretty much a commentary in and of itself. Torah has no tenses, has no vowels, has no spaces. It's numerical. So when you translate that into an English story for children or whatever, the Jews might, Russian or whatever, Polish or whatever, it loses something. So technically, the words that you read in the Bible, the common tongue, is almost a commentary in and of itself. And that's kind of how we have to approach how we approach it. So when we hear talking about Torah, we might not necessarily mean the written word, because there's a lot more to the teaching than just what's written down.
All right. Well.
We only have the bits and pieces shown to us.
Well, yeah. I mean, the Zexi Scrolls. I'm assuming the majority of the Zexi Scrolls, which is where the Torah came from, didn't survive very well.
Torah is older than the Dead Sea Scrolls, my friend. This stuff's been around about 3,800 years. Or 3,500?
Okay.
Yeah, it's been around. Yeah, this predates Babylon. It predates Greek. It predates Rome. Christians that's more of a Christian thing anyway, and other Gnostic stuff and some goodies.
So this chapter is interesting because it gives, the layer, the cloth, the covering, to the tabernacle, in fine detail. And while I was reading it, I really did think I was repeating myself and wondered when it would end. All joking aside, that was a tough one, man.
It says here that the cloth was designed with a lion, an eagle, and an ox, and is supposed to represent the prophet Ezekiel.
Yep. With winged, and who also had wings.
Yeah, wings.
Image given.
Christians would say the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. No, just kidding.
I never understood that Trinity thing.
Yeah, that's not a Jewish thing either.
Oh, good.
There is a son. I don't think there's anybody alive who couldn't call himself a son. There is a Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit. There is
all right, so they're like three separate entities, but they're not the same entity.
But neither of them are God.
Okay.
There's nothing in creation we can call God. In fact, it's prohibited to worship any created thing. It's a death penalty thing to do in Judaism. You don't do that at all.
Obviously.
It's radical monotheism, if you will. Names of the directions, which I thought was interesting. It's obvious that the word Mitzrah, I believe, derived from the word, the shining of the sun. And I'm not even going to read it in Hebrew. I'm not going to try. I want to bore anybody. The west is derived from evening or setting of the sun. Ramban, the Noachide, explains the derivation of the other names of the various directions, unlike the commonly used secular term that uses north as a primary point of reference. So all maps have north on top. The Torah's system assigns this role to the east, as we will see below. East is primary because it is natural for people to look toward the sun which rises in the east, and for this reason, the east is nicknamed forward. Conversely, west is nicknamed rear because it is in the back of something facing eastward.
And that makes sense. They're traveling. Okay.
West is also nicknamed the sea because the Mediterranean was on the western boundary of Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. The proper name for south, and it's nicknamed, which means dry, to the southern desert of Eretz Yisrael. Its other name, Devarim is a contraction of the words dwelling on high, because as one goes south from the land of Israel, the sun is higher in the sky. North is called hidden because as one goes northward, the sun is less and less. And in the extreme north, it does not rise at all for part of the year. So south is also called right, and the north left, because they're on both sides of the person facing east, the primary direction. Okay.
Right. Cool. That's really... So that's interesting because they had to set up the tabernacle like that every single time they had to pitch it.
Mm-hmm.
And was this daily for 40 years or whatever?
Everywhere they went. It wouldn't be like daily. They wouldn't have to set up and take it down every day, but...
Oh, they didn't travel every day?
Not every day, no.
Okay. Well, yeah, not on the Sabbath for sure, but okay.
For sure.
Keep the Sabbath day holy. Which is...
What else was there that was interesting in this chapter?
There's a Tibetan philosophy called the Great Eastern Sun. This isn't Torah-based, but I think it's interesting that the Great Eastern Sun is always at all times illuminating darkness. It never ceases to illuminate darkness. It also there's something called the Great Eastern Sun, the setting sun point of view. An example of the setting sun is like the Pink Floyd song "Time." You run to catch up with the sun, but it's sinking, racing around, come up behind you again. You know, it's almost like fixing too much food, knowing you're going to do it, gorging yourself anyway, and wasting the rest. That's an example of a setting sun point of view, whereas the Great Eastern Sun would just accept what comes about, and gets it bit by bit, and until you are, fully illuminated. And I think it's interesting the Torah kind of seems to give the same frame of reference for your mind, if anything, let alone the tabernacle. But yeah, so which is very important.
Oh, I have a question about verse 34 whenever you guys are ready to...
Verse 34?
All ears, Jeremy.
What does they mean by the most holy place? Like every time they go somewhere, they have to figure the most holy place? Or is it where it is will be the most holy place?
That was the tabernacle is in two sections, the Holy of Holies and the outer part.
Reuven, show the picture again of the Mishkan, please. Our producer and host, the great, mighty Reuven Goldstein. He's one of Morpheus's bunch in here.
It says here, no man can enter the Holy of Holies except for the Kohen on Yom Kippur, and the other Kohen can enter the other part to do their temple services, to do their what does it say here? I can't pronounce the word. Something services.
Thank you, Reuven. See the pillar?
Yeah.
That's the Holy of Holies.
Okay.
Oh.
I have to ask, what's with all the tents?
That's Israel. That's the 12th tribe.
Oh, okay.
What's with all the tents?
Well, I mean...
Party.
3 million people were at Sinai. It was a public event. That's why it's hard to forget. It's hard for people to forget something like that. 3 million people were there. Not all of them, not all of them made it after that, but you can imagine an entire nation. And that's about what you're looking at right there. So yeah, Holy of Holies was a very important place. That's where you had that was primary because that's where, you know. Now I think it's also interesting that you have that there's an interesting way of looking at the tabernacle because you notice where food would digest, you know, is where you would bring the offerings there, and you can see where the Holy of Holies is. And we just heard about the menorah. That the menorah represents the light of intellect. See, Moses said God was in the mind. Jesus said he's in the heart. Jesus wasn't wrong, but Moses, you have to understand with Torah, that's why Jews are real good nerds, you know. They're good with that stuff. So, you know, that's just kind of how they look at Torah. There's a whole lot. There's a whole lot more. For those of you who don't know, it is a numerical language. And so math becomes important, and understanding how it reads like a code, let alone the 8-year-olds and idea of it with the children's version, which is what Christians usually grow up with in all their lives, is they're getting basically the children's
codes.
It's actually, I kind of have to give credit to the Torah codes, to that fella. He did discover something that nobody thought would be there. A lot of people don't like it, but that is interesting.
Hey, Doom Frank, do you have anything on your mind, man?
No, I'm just
Awful quiet.
Well, when I first come, I just read and just try to gather information, then have my commentary towards the end, I guess.
Okay.
Oh, I did want to say to Green Soul, I noticed your recent post, and I will say that I would not want to live in that house in case of a storm. Go ahead.
I don't know how long that house has been there, but, I would like to find out, though.
Okay, this is the modern day Mishkan at Shiloh, and so is this like today's version of a tabernacle? Yeah, okay. Well, I want to see cherubim. Sorry. I'm all about those now. How big do you think that is? I can't grasp that. Is that like a football?
I don't know, maybe like half a football field.
Like, gives you doesn't it tell you how long it is?
Probably does. You can probably Google it.
Oh, we just passed it. Wouldn't it be here?
Oh, yeah, I guess if it's a replica, it'd have to be this. Yeah, you're right. I didn't. Yeah, that makes sense. That just seems in such a strange shape. That's wild.
I don't know.
Cool, thanks, Reuven.
This might be interesting. The tabernacle was this, and this is what J-Dubs is saying. I just thought I might expand on that, J-Dubs. The tabernacle was divided into 2 chambers: the Holy of the Holies, which no one may ever enter except for the Kohen Gadol, the high priests, on Yom Kippur, and the Holy, which may be entered by any Kohen who is not in a state of spiritual contamination and who enters either to perform the service or to prostrate there. The divider between the 2 domains was the paroches, or partition, which was hung from a bar attached to the tops of the pillars described in this passage. The partition was 10 cubits from the rear wall, so that the Holy of Holies was 10 by 10 cubits, and the Holy was 10 by 20.
I wonder if there's anybody who went ahead and did it anyway.
Did what?
Rush into the holy section of the temple.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll find out what happens to them not before too long.
Sometimes I wonder if okay. Wouldn't be humans without it. Okay.
Yeah, it's It wasn't a wise move on their part. Let's just put it that way. It was very
somebody comes down from the mountain, 3 million other people see it, they tell me some rules, I'm thinking at least for that last time I'm going to follow it. But man, we're knuckleheads.
A little bit.
Ooh, the one where religions tend to fall because someone was too curious about the holy areas that they weren't supposed to go. A pretty good example of that is the Greek gods.
How's that?
The Greek gods live on Mount Olympus. Someone climbs to Mount Olympus. There's no gods. You lied! I could go on with that idea, but...
No kidding, like a rope so he could get out, move and put the high priest tied a rope around himself in case he died in the presence of God, so they could pull him out. Okay, yeah.
That's some commitment.
All right, we have almost one more chapter to go.
Okay.
J-Dubs?
I'm not in the mood to read, to be honest with you, brah.
Any volunteers before I take it?
Yeah, I'm not a Torah person.
I'll read. Where are we?
Exodus chapter 27. And you'll read through verse 19. We don't read 20.
Okay. Chapter 27, verse 1. And you shall make the altar of acacia wood 5 cubits long and 5 cubits wide. The altar shall be square, and its height shall be 3 cubits. And you shall make it horns on the 4 corners. Its horns shall be from it, and you shall overlay it with copper. And you shall make its pots to remove its ashes, and its shovels, and its sprinkling basins, and its flesh hooks, and its scoops. And you shall make it all its implements of copper. And you shall make it a copper grating of netting work, and you shall make on the netting 4 copper rings, and its 4 ends. And you shall place it beneath the ledge of the altar from below, and the net shall extend downward into the middle of the altar. And you shall make poles for the altar, poles of acacia wood, and you shall overlay them with copper. And its poles shall be inserted into the rings, and the poles shall be on both sides of the altar when it's carried. You shall make it hollow out of boards, as he showed you on the mountains, so shall they do. And you shall make the courtyard of the Mishkan. On the southern side there shall be hangings for the courtyard of twisted fine linen, and 100 cubits long on one side. And its pillars shall be 20, and their sockets 20 of copper. The hooks on the pillars and their bands shall be of silver. And so for the northern end, and the length of hangings 100 cubits long, its pillars 20, and their sockets 20 of copper. The hooks of the pillars and their bands of silver. The width of the courtyard on the western side, hanging 50 cubits, their pillars 10, and their sockets 10. the width of the courtyard on the eastern side, 50 cubits. The hangings on the shoulder shall be 15 cubits, their pillars 3, and their sockets 3. And on the second shoulder there shall be 15 hangings, their pillars 3, and their sockets 3. And at the gate of the courtyard shall be a screen of 20 cubits made of blue, purple, and crimson wool, and twisted fine linen, the work of an embalmer. Their pillars 4 and their sockets 4. All the pillars around the courtyard shall have silver bands, silver hooks, and copper sockets. Their length of the courtyard shall be 100 cubits, and width of 50 by 50 cubits. The height of the hanging shall be 5 cubits of twisted fine linen, and their sockets shall be of copper. All the implements of the Mishkan, for all its labor, and all its pegs, and all the pegs of the courtyard shall be copper.
Good job.
Thank you, Frank.
I'm actually extremely fascinated while I was reading this. This was just like I felt like getting my math book and started doing some algebra or something, man. It was amazing.
Yeah, I wrote over there, these men were clearly brilliant. Listen, all that architect, I wouldn't even know where to start on that. I'm barely able to brew up some ramen noodle without burning it.
Yeah, this was very detailed, and I actually enjoy. I think this is the one that I enjoyed the most out of reading all of them. This was just like, wow, this was amazing. Because every time I'm reading like a verse, I know it has significance into it because the numbers and the symmetry of it. Like I'm picturing it while this is happening. So it's actually pretty fascinating. It's like they give you a textbook of how to build something, which I think that was pretty good. And kind of makes me think of like divine architecture in a way. When you're building something, it's done in such a careful and such a caring manner. So I dig it, but definitely I'm going to start looking at the commentary to really get some grasp of some of the interpretations of why this was done.
One of the things that's amazing is a lot of these areas and places that were built, created, and these things that were designed. What's fascinating is these things were built to last. I mean, we can still sit there even today, be able to go into archaeology and find a lot of these great things. These guys knew what they were doing. They made things right. Go ahead.
There you go. J-Dubs is on it. There's the menorah. There's a table. There's the copper altar. By the way, on the temple, in the temple in Jerusalem, the entire roof was copper, where they had the fire. Great conductor copper.
Now, how do you suppose, because I'm not an architect, like I said, ramen noodle is going to get burnt in my hands. How are they doing the copper on the roof with all that heat and fire that rises without causing it to melt or, you know, come down on them?
And the fire never went out.
That's amazing.
Even when it rained. That was cool, J-Dubs. Thank you. There's a lot of significance to all
the extra perks when you get the actual proper Hebrew Bible, the Tanakh. You get a little extra bonus goodies in the back. They go through everything you need to know. Who's the prophet? Who they're related to? The tribes, the kids, everything.
Reuven types Maimonides. This is the Rambam, considered the greatest commentator. Maimonides asserts that the tabernacle and its accoutrements, such as the golden Ark of the Covenant and the golden menorah, were meant as alternates to the human weaknesses and needs for physical idols as seen in the golden calf episode, which we'll get to. We haven't had the golden calf or the red heifer or anything yet.
Dude, the thing that puzzles me is the movie didn't have the tabernacle in it. So
Probably out of respect. In the meeting tent, the tent of meeting. Tabernacle's meaning is not tied in with the golden calf, but instead symbolizes higher mystical lessons that symbolize God's constant closeness to the children of Israel. A reminder of the Sinai event. The whole thing was a reminder of the Sinai event, which means they were also given this at Sinai.
right.
Which is, yeah.
And you think about where they came from, where they came out from, and then to build something like that without any idols, knowing how the world was, this amazes me. It almost seems revolutionary in the sense that they kept it so clean from things. And it's funny because I was at Facebook today, and Path actually, wrote something. What puzzled me at first, but then I understood what he was talking about. He was like, "How many idols does it take? Does it take to go to Mecca?" I'm like, what is he talking about? He was talking about money. That's what he was talking about, because in the money there's actually, there's a human figure in there. There's a face. So idols, money. So that's the way I was like, holy crap, I got it. So it was just one thing that I just witnessed today. So, but it was funny.
Yeah, they weren't allowed to bring foreign currency into the temple. That's why you had to exchange them for shekels.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, they had Roman gods on them, or faces of people. In the law, in the Noachide law that you hear me talk about, you're not allowed to have a full frontal face or any frontal outline in 3D image, even a wood carving. To the side is okay, but you can't have any kind of protrusion of that nature. A frontal protrusion of a human is prohibited for Noachides. That would be considered a avodah zarah. Not technically an idol until it's worshipped, but it's still an object of foreign worship.
This is one thing I definitely would like to ask about. I've always been curious on why it is that drawing an image, and I can understand that in Islam and Judaism it seems like this is something that's very significant and important. Why is drawing an image or designing a statue or something so, kind of iffy on this when it comes to the face, as you pointed out?
Well, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that because the second commandment that we got a couple of parshas ago, or two parshas ago, second commandment: don't make one. Don't make any graven image of anything. Do not bow down to it. And so when the Romans took over the Christian church and imposed an idol upon their subjects, it was an idol of Jesus, of dead guy on a stick, and people would worship that, and that tends to draw worship from God. No, it doesn't tend to. That draws worship from God, even though they're talked about God or taught God in this Roman church. And I think Muhammad, or maybe just the Muslim people, took a look at that and said, okay, we're not even going to go anywhere near it. As God says, don't boil a kid in its mother's milk. But what do Jews do? They don't even eat them close to each other. They separate by like 2 hours, some of them. You don't eat a dairy product with a meat product and within 2 hours of each other. They take it. So I see, and I could be wrong, Frank, correct me, but when Rome was doing this with the image of Jesus, and who agreed with the law, you don't worship idols, made an idol out of the guy. They went the other direction to ensure that Muhammad would never be seen as God or a God or an idol or a thing of worship. Am I right on that?
Yeah, yeah. Any types of graven images, and one of the things that was very significant even during that time, and when Islam was spreading, they couldn't do art because they couldn't do that human face, but they went into geometry. They went into patterns, and actually they, if you see a lot of Islamic art, they're usually like you see like these geometric forms, and they go, and it's very significant because if you count, the shapes and things like that, new shapes starts appearing. It's almost like an infinite thing, and so they were able to actually, not perfect in a way, but actually look for new shapes and how shapes are even formed. There's a whole book on it, but with a restriction comes a new type of art, and that's one of the things I notice about art too. Is like sometimes they're restricted from doing things, but yet they find other outlets of creativity, which becomes really beautiful. But
Was that the original plan, though? I mean, the original point on the engraven images because of that? Because I understand with putting the heads of authority figures on coins and money and all this kind of stuff, this has clearly caused an issue even in our time and age, but was that the original reason why it was put forth, no engraven images? Was there more to it than just that?
Abraham's dad was an idol maker and an idol worshiper. I mean, I'll tell the story one more time. I've told it before. It's been told in here a few times, but Abraham was 3 years old, and his dad said, watch the shop for me. I got to go down here. Abraham was very bright, so it was cool. And his dad was an idol salesman. Get your idol. What kind of idol you want? I got your idol. I got your idol. I got your idol. Come on up. He had every one of them in there. So while he was gone, little Abraham goes and grabs a pole and smashes every single idol in the shop except for the big one. And he puts the staff in the big one's hand. And when his dad came back, he's like, what have you done? Oh my God, this is our livelihood. And he goes, well, that big god's got jealous of all the other gods and didn't want him to take over, so he smashed them all. And he goes, son, these aren't real. And Abraham goes, uh-huh, what? Say it again? So, that I think it's because foreign worship used idols, and I think it was, and because they're so easily revered by the human psyche, God would prohibit them completely from Israel.
And sometimes, if you take a look at it, we're so obsessed with the human figure. Constantly looking in the mirror, constantly trying to beautify ourselves, becoming hence more narcissistic as time goes on. And we are blinded a lot of times by the human figure in the sense that we don't really look so much as the character or the actions of the person, but we actually look how that person looks. So that's, for me, this is one of my explanations that sometimes there's too much focus on faces and not enough about people's actions. But as far as worshiping goes, yeah, that was something done back then in a human figure. And some figure, in a lot of times it was a god or gods. Definitely forbidden for that. And the other thing I want to point out too is that we don't want to limit the divine in any way by a face or a figure, even if we want to call it representation, and that's why a lot of times, even with Islamic art, it tries to conceptualize the infinite, not by a face or a figure or an animal. but something, you know, beyond our understanding.
I have an unusual question for you guys. What about, I get where you guys are coming with, but what about a photograph? What if you take a picture of someone, or you have a machine that manufactures something that resembles that of a, you understand what I'm getting at? Photograph keeps the image of the individual.
This it has to be sculptured by hand, as if by hand. That's why engraven. I'm not sure I could count as a picture. I know that in Judaism, the drawn form is not quite as stringent as I think the Muslims. I think there's a little. They're on painting. Wood carvings, on the other hand, that's a whole different thing. And Reuven points out something good. It's more than just an image. It's worshiping the creation of men over the creation of God, rather than just just worshiping God.
Well, then why should it be an issue if individuals agree that something that is painted or something that is carved it's nothing more than a representation, it's not something you worship or follow, then why then should it be bad? You understand what I'm getting at?
Like I say, it's a like for decoration, a Noachide in the Noachidic law, because we weren't told not to make engraven images, we were told not to worship any created thing. God was a bit more they're a little more, they're not like for decoration, we don't have to destroy them. We can nullify an idol even. Because we kind of have, and I think in the modern world we might have moved past that a bit. I don't know. I think it's a little more, it's a bit more stringent in Islam. But I mean, they're not out ready to, go smash the statue of Sam Houston alongside the highway in Texas or something, anything like that. But yeah, you can make somebody larger with life with it. I mean, look at Lincoln. That is one imposing monument.
No, there's that other one. And remember Saddam Hussein when they were tearing that down?
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty
He was living.
well, barely.
Not even a memorial. Barely.
One of the reasons I'm confused, TheIdolSmasher, about this particular topic, and hopefully we can talk more about it at a later date if you like. But I watched something recently called Monumental. Have you ever heard of this?
I have not.
Well, basically, it's something I never thought I'd watch because it had Kirk Cameron in it, but I gave it a shot. It's called Monumental, and basically it talks about the Puritans, pilgrims coming over, doing their thing, Mayflower and such. And the documentary states that whenever the Christians got here, they actually created a erected a giant statue with many different bodies on it that are of liberty, justice, morality, and all these different things. And on top of it, it's got this statue that's got a star in its head pointing up at the sky as though it's representing God. Do you know what I'm talking about? I forget what the name of the statue is. But it was clearly what they were claiming. This is our morality and our ethics will be the law of the land. And they were making the argument that this was the founding of God in America, basically. Or, the 13 colonies, however you want to hit it with.
Right.
But I just found it interesting that from their own belief system, they realized that the engraven images thing was an issue. Why would they build this big granite thing to represent all these different figures to then somehow symbolize God? It was odd for me. Beautiful statue, but still, I didn't get it.
Why you would choose if they're representation or archetypes. See, we can use archetypes because we can pull them apart. It's like a teaching tool. Like Liberty is in New York is like an archetype. She's walking on chains. She's always in forward motion. The light of enlightenment is held highest.
It's facing east. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, she's facing France, but so there's lessons to be learned in her. You know, she's been illuminated by divinity. That's what the crown of Apollo is on her head. You know, so it's an archetype of. So you can look at it that way in that form of art, which is kind of what those archetypes are. Like Lady Justice is blind with scales and a sword. That's an archetype.
But also the things that you guys are mentioning, was anybody praying to them?
Well, yeah, if they're prayed to, then they got to go down.
Right.
Absolutely.
I don't know how the Pilgrims or the Puritans responded to the thing that they had built back then, but I know nowadays the thing is literally, this beautiful granite statue is literally sitting off on kind of a cliff, and if you walk just 20 feet, there's a neighborhood, like just your typical suburbanite neighborhood just right there, like it don't even mean anything. But apparently to them, they wanted to remind, they claim to have built it to remind humanity, in case our government and our political system ever gets lost, to come back to that, and it will point out what we need to think about in order to keep ourselves grounded, if that makes sense. I forget what it's called, though. I can't believe it just escaped my tongue like that.
That's neat. I did not know about that. I'll have to check it out.
Neither did I until I watched that movie. But that's another interesting thing, too, though, is movies, television, photography. This is all catching the images of men and humans and all that. And I do notice that it's used more as a entertainment and violence and pornography type thing as opposed to an educational tool, sadly.
Wait, is that it?
Let me take a look at the forefathers.
No, that's not it.
That's it. That's the statue, yeah. There it is.
National Monument to the Forefathers, or the Forefathers Monument.
There's a lot more going on the back of it, too. If you look real close, it actually has some of the laws pointed out. I don't know if you can see the big long thing right in the middle between all the three, but there's even more statues of figures on the back of it, too. They're only showing the front.
Very Roman.
Yeah, this is the thing, I could say about it. I'm sure it's, pretty beautiful, but the question is, could that be universal? Because even with the faces, they look very Romanesque, but you have people from different cultures now coming and seeing those figures, and how could they actually relate to it? Again, very Romanesque, very beautiful. However, for me especially, and people, darker complexion, could this be relatable to me? Because if it wasn't there, the statues wasn't there, I think it would be more relatable to me because I could actually picture it myself. But when you have an image like that in front of you, and you're like, okay, it's supposed to be a symbolization, but it doesn't look like me. So that's just some of my take on it, and with statues in general.
Yeah, I hear you there, man. That's a good point. But it was interesting when you see Kirk Cameron and then the historian walking around the thing, and they're describing, to me, they kind of described it the same way that you would describe like how'd I put it? There was a story being told as you circled the statue and all that. It wasn't just something to sit there and look pretty. It was supposed to represent morals, ethics, liberty, freedom, and the struggle and challenge and yada, yada, yada. But still, some of it was very, how shall I say, I don't want to get myself in trouble for this, but I just sensed some paganism coming off of it. But that makes sense. Go ahead. Be right back, folks.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, given, the Roman mindset, we're really big into imagery and statue making, and I think it's, in a way, it's almost innate to actually beautify and to, but it's something that it could be very natural, because in church, there was a lot of people who couldn't read and write, and in order to express the stories, they used to, do these paintings and do these pictures, and it's just another form of, of expression in a sense.
Before we get too far off topic, before we go into the Haftorah, was there anything anybody wanted to discuss about the tabernacle and its and the courtyard, whatnot? There's not a whole lot of commentary about it, to be honest with you.
Do we have anything in the Q&A, Reuven? Any comments on the video page? Anything on the event page? Anything that people are asking? Can Reuven hear me, or am I talking to myself? I'm having a religious experience, or
nobody's there. The Haftorah, for those of you watching for the first time, the Haftorah is a section of the rest of the Hebrew Bible that pertains to the weekly reading of the Torah. There's a parallel, and it was added on, of course, later because it deals with books that came later. And so it's just a couple of sections that just relate. We usually finish off the reading before we go too far gone with the Haftorah. Tonight's Haftorah for Terumah is 1 Kings. It will only be in 1 Kings, but we have chapter 5, verse 26 through chapter 6:13. In fact, I went to, let me point that out. Let me type that out here.
I say we give it to Reuven to read.
Yeah, Reuven, it's your turn. One day he's going to come out of his closet and he's going to read with us. He's probably French.
Actually, you hit that right on the nose.
There you go.
He is French! Ah! We have a Frenchman. I know very little French, but I can talk with outrageous accent. 1 Kings chapter 26 through 6 through 13. All right, here we go. Producer. Okay, here we go. Hashem gave wisdom to Solomon, as he had spoken to him, and there was peace between Hiram and Solomon, and the two of them sealed a covenant. King Solomon levied a tax upon all of Israel. The tax consisted of 30,000 men. He sent them to Lebanon in shifts of 10,000 per month. For a month they would be in Lebanon, and for 2 months they would be at home. Adoniram was in charge of the tax. Solomon had 70,000 carriers of burden and 8,000 quarry workers in the mountain. Aside from Solomon's chief officers who supervised the work, 3,300 who ruled the people who performed the work. The king commanded that they uprooted great stones, heavy stones, to lay the foundation of the temple with hewn stone. The builders of Solomon and builders of Hiram and the Gabalites fashioned and prepared the wood and the stones to build the temple. Chapter 6. It was 480 years after Israel's exodus from the land of Egypt, in the 4th year, in the month of Ziv, which is the 2nd month of Solomon's kingship over Israel, he built the temple for Hashem. The temple that Solomon built for Hashem was 60 cubits in length, 20 cubits in width, and 30 cubits in height.
Wow.
The portico in front of the hall of the temple, 20 cubits its length, in front of the width of the temple, 10 cubits its width in front of the temple. For the temple he made windows that were bored on the outside and narrow on the inside. Against the wall of the temple he built a chamber all around, the walls of the temple all around the hall and the most holy. And he made side chambers all around, the lowest story 5 cubits its width, the middle one 6 cubits its width, and the third one 7 cubits its width. For he had provided recesses all around to the temple on the outside, in order not to penetrate the walls of the temple. When the temple was being built, it was built of complete quarried stone. Hammers, chisels, and any iron utensils were not heard in the temple when it was being built. The entrance to the central lowest chamber was at the south side of the temple, and up a spiral staircase they would ascend to the middle one, and from the middle one to the third story. He built the temple and completed it. He made the temple ceiling of decorative wood with cedar planks. He built the side chamber along the entire temple, 5 cubits its height, and he covered the house with cedar wood. The word of Hashem came to Solomon, saying, This temple that you build, if you follow my decrees, perform my statutes, and observe all my commandments to follow them, then I shall uphold my word with you, that I spoke to David your father. I may dwell among the children of Israel, and I shall not forsake my people Israel. Thus ends the Haftorah.
That was. They always have good Torah, scriptures.
Yeah, I like the end in there. It says, "If you walk in my presence and execute my commandments." I liking that.
I was I just got back and heard all that was going on, but I was wondering if I could ask one more question about the subject right before.
Hit it.
Have you do you think that maybe the engraven images thing also was meant in order to not deceive us, but in order to keep something secret? I'll give you an example. Nowadays, in our modern times, what is one of the things that people just love to sit down and watch? What kind of imagery they enjoy looking at? People like to look at these images of UFOs and demons and angels and supernatural phenomena and such. And people claim that they catch it in the imagery and such. Could it be possible that God realized that humans would go jump the shark?
Or they find like Virgin Mary in a piece of toast, or Jesus in a lampshade, or something like that. Too,
right, right. Because I remember when I was younger, when I would see the passage of engraven images, it was one of those things that confused me. But as I get older, and I see how imagery is used to, I don't know, it seems like it's a very powerful force that has caused a lot of the issue with humans. Even though it's been great and a learning tool in some ways, good things always tend to get used for evil,
Mm-hmm. Accept what is. Don't dwell on that which is not, or a single moment in time.
There's a saying in Judaism, what is revealed is for man, what is hidden is for God.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're worthy, like Shem was, to go back to the Garden of Eden, Mazel Tov. Don't count on it.
That is an absolutely beautiful picture. That's gorgeous.
The house for all nations.
And it was huge. It was like, that was a football field.
Yeah, about.
Like 60 cubits, 18 inches in a cubit. That's wow.
Well, you can see the base of it in Jerusalem, or the second one in Jerusalem right now. It was quite a sight.
They cut the stone and did everything with it before they brought it to its resting place. You know what I mean? Like, so they had it all perfectly. I guess they had to measure like 20 times cut once type thing, but whatever. And it was of granite.
It had to be hammered. You
know what I wondered about the windows? What were windows made out of back then?
I don't think they were made of anything. They were bigger on the outside and went and came small, I believe.
But they were just holes?
I believe so.
Okay.
No, it's not backwards.
That entire basin foundation is great. Would be great in a fortifying situation. Do you know what I mean? The way this looks, if somebody had tried to attack it from either side, they'd have hell on wheels there. In their time period, it would literally take months in order to even be able to come up with some kind of sophisticated plan, do something like that. Wow.
House for all nations. That's ours, y'all.
Oh, Reuven said that their glassmaking was invented back then. Didn't know that.
They were glass. Okay. All right. Well, what do I know?
Yeah, I didn't know either. Okay, so I had a couple questions.
I can imagine.
They're two, and they're bigger questions. But he gave him the wisdom, right? So King Solomon was smart enough to ask for wisdom, which is profound. Then he gave it to him. He built this and said, "I will always be with your people." So it's not really a question. It was just kind of something compelling. That it still was like, I don't want to call it quid pro quo, but it was like he gave him a gift, he had to do something still, and then he gave him an even greater gift when he accomplished it. So that just seems to be a running theme throughout the Old Testament. But the second question really has to do more with tax. This is the first time I've heard it's acceptable to tax. And they didn't tax money, they taxed men. And I wondered as if this is how we got our draft.
That's how a king pays tax.
Right. Got it.
Money? What do I need money for? I'm in charge of the kingdom of Israel. Yeah, that blew me away too. It will be a tax of men. I was like, wow.
Look at this image Reuven that found, man. This one.
Wow.
Oh, it's not coming out nice. It's not coming out good though. Let me see if I can
What
upgrade
is it?
this.
Oh, wait. Oh,
It's
wow.
gritty or earthy picture.
Is that still standing today?
The base is the western wall is.
Okay.
The mount is still there. The mosque is actually preserving, or has preserved since it was built. It's preserving the Holy of Holies. I think it's the altar stone. Whoa. Which one was it? The Western Wall is not from the Second Temple? Really? Well, learning something new every day. So that was Solomon's wall. Okay. Now the mosque is actually, is it the altar that the mosque sits on? No. There's a significance to the mosque being there. It's preserved something really important. My rabbi had me watch a documentary on it a while back. It's slipping my. The Holy of Holies. Okay, it is the Holy of Holies then. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, there's good reason why the mosque is there at that location. And he says here to Solomon, if you keep my commandments and follow them, then I'll keep my covenant and I'll dwell with Israel. So it wasn't what Israel would do. This is a weight being put on Solomon's shoulders.
Right. But he gave him wisdom, so I don't see it being an issue.
No, it would be, sounds like a good king for Israel at the time.
Wow, Temple of Jupiter. Now what is Reuven showing? Oh,
Yeah, bringing in graven images, bringing false gods into the temple. Bad move.
So when's the third temple coming, guys?
Tomorrow. Let's start it tomorrow. Let's make it happen. Let's everyone agree. Let's just move. Let's get on with it. The future's the future, and the only way to get there is together. All nations. All nations. That's yours. I mean that. I know it sounds. That's what it's made for. It's technically not a Jewish temple. That's the world's temple. That's humanity's temple. There's something about the area. It's called the belly button of the world. There's something about that position on the planet that is said to be the close, like the belly button, I guess is the best way to put it. A lot of psychic energy, if you will. I don't know how to better explain it. A ley line, if you're a Rips fan. Something is there. There's something very special about that area.
What do you say to individuals out there? Because I've heard some people state that if temple were rebuilt or put back together, that this would be a sign of the beginning of the end. What would you say to individuals like that?
It'll be the end of history, but the beginning of the utopia spoken of in the prophecy, in the Hebrew, and in a good deal of the Hebrew prophets, they talk about a utopian world, that they will destroy their instruments of war, never know it again. They'll accept that they're one family from one creator, willingly, mind you. There will be a rebel, but he won't last. There isn't much spoken on him, if I'm not mistaken. I know very little about what's the anti-Mashiach, and every time I hear about it from a Jew, it's always in a joke, and I'm not kidding. But yeah, that's when the temple gets built, that's a sign that the Messiah is already here. If the temple's been started, then the Messiah is already here. You'll see the change in the world. It will be apparent. The human beings will see it. The existence will change. How do you know?
When you obviously you've probably been in conversations where as you know, I'm a theist, but I've heard Christians state, some of them at least, believe that if that temple is built, that this will be the time of an Antichrist figure that will sit upon it, and then the end of the world will come after many different situations happen. Do you believe that this is metaphorical, or is the world going to end and then God recreated like a new world?
You want it dry? You want it 200 proof? It's nice Roman addition, isn't it? I mean, Jesus is the morning star at the end of it. I mean, it's a nice little addition to their conquest of the Jews, isn't it? Yeah, where prophecy keeps telling about this time when we'll live together, when you know, and then
it's almost like you can't win for losing. Almost
can't win for losing. It's like, oh, for Pete's sakes, God gives you utopia, and you take that and say it's the end of the world, and everything's going to be bad, and Satan rules, and all that. And it's
well, they don't just technically they're not just saying, well, it's the end. Oh man, look, they built the temple. Wow, terrible news. They're saying that there will be the utopia, but things are going to get at its worst before it gets better, kind of concept. You know what I mean?
Well, when Mashiach comes, that's when it's better. That's how we know it's Mashiach. We don't know. We can't know who this one king who just happens to be in charge. When he comes, a great leader. When he comes, you won't need. You'll know he's the Messiah because you'll be able to look out your window and know something has changed. That's how obvious it will be to the world. And yeah, it will get worse before it gets better. There is that aspect of it, yes, but Once it's here, that temple will be for the world, and the world will be at peace with itself, and it'll be a utopia. It'll be Eden. We'll be rebuilding. We'll be healing Eden. Well, it's like we want to heal it now, but it'll just be kicked into overdrive, and it'll be paradise on earth. No one will have any reason to doubt him. Mashiach might already be here. We may find out when he becomes 50. Yeah, it's obvious. It'll be obvious. This is just according to the prophecies in the Old Testament. I know the New Testament has a different aspect, and it's worked in its own way, I guess. But yeah, when the temple's built, the Mashiach would have already been here, and everybody would have known it. And this will be built, and people will anticipate it. Everybody will come to God.
Like Reuven says, the Mashiach is, a little boy playing soccer in Crown Heights as we speak, He's scoring a goal as we speak,
So any day, we want the Messiah. In Judaism, more you learn about the era. You don't know much about the man. There's very little spoken of about the man, but we get a lot of imagery and a lot of foresight into what's coming, and it does get better. But yeah, it does get worse. There will be strife beforehand. I think that's made pretty clear in Isaiah. There'll be a boatload of strife.
It would just have to be. If you were try to build the third temple, oof. That's gonna piss a lot of people off, That
was the first Hebrew word I recognized, Reuven. When I was taking Hebrew, learning to read and write it, that was when I saw that exact picture. I think the blue and the yellow might have been reversed, but I was like, that's Mashiach. I know that word. I read a Hebrew word.
Why do you think that there seems to be so much? I guess I can't fully comprehend it. I hear all kinds of people say whatever, but I just can't comprehend the anger or aggravation people would get over it just simply getting fixed and done up.
You mean the world, us?
Prophecy is true. That means their wicked ways are coming to an end.
There's a theory. One theory is that we're at 5775. We are year 5775 since the first Homo sapiens stepped foot on the earth. That was Adam. Adam, or the Adam. By 6000, he should arrive. So if not us, it could very well easily be our children. We know we're living in a special time. Look around. Nothing's like this has ever happened before. We are growing intellectually by leaps and bounds in areas nobody has ever done before. The whole of humanity is actually coming together, like Google Plus. We live in a really, really special time, and I know that it's dour. I know that there's terrorism, and I know that we still have to fight. War is unfortunately somewhat of a necessity right now, not our choosing, but we'll get over it, and it's going to happen pretty soon. So if not us, maybe our kids, our grandkids. It's probably not far off. I think. I don't know, but we're not supposed to really anticipate it that much. We're not supposed to focus on the time when he's going to come. We have to, but still we anticipate.
Frank, you look like you're deep in thought. What's on your mind?
That's just Frank. He's in light now. He always looks like that.
Oh, no, I'm just reading. No, there's a couple of questions probably later on I have. It's pertaining to Torah.
The Parsha?
How it's separated. This is new to me. Yeah.
Chamber?
No, it's the word half Torah.
Mm-hmm.
Now.
Oh, the Holy Temple.
So
Go ahead.
I'm just trying to figure out what, how it's separated and how it's constructed, the Torah itself. So that's what I'm trying to
How's
figure
the
out.
Torah separated? What do you mean?
Yeah, like in partitions, in parts, because like I
Oh,
was
how they
looking.
came about it?
Yeah, well, the half Torah for Terumah, like that, the Torah itself, but then you have these. I'm trying to find Kings, and I don't know where Kings is. So I'm just like trying to put things together, I guess.
I actually have a document on that. Give me a second, I'll pull it up.
I was just going to say Kings would be in the books of writings, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It would come right after Torah. Well, somewhat after Torah. You would have Joshua, and then.
Yeah, the major prophets tend to follow Torah, and most Hebrew, actually everyone that I've ever seen, even Christian text, Joshua, which is a great place to go because he was made a prophet before Moses died. It's like, who wrote the last part of the Torah? It's like, well, who's the only prophet alive to do so? Joseph or Joshua.
There was
So you
a
don't. I was going to ask TheIdolSmasher. So you don't. So you believe that? Say that again. That Joshua wrote Torah.
Right. Did Moses write about his own death? I mean, he couldn't face his own death. He went up on the mountain and pleaded with God. He didn't want to. Not that he was afraid of dying, but he wanted to make sure his work would be completed, that they get to the promised land, that they do what they're supposed to do. And he prayed to God to the point to where he was shaking the gates of heaven, literally. And if God had not killed him when he did, he would have broken them down. And so they say, yeah, who wrote the Torah? Who wrote the last words of the Torah? If it was supposed to be the books of Moses, well, according to that book, who was the only prophet alive who could have prophesied that? And that would be Joshua.
I've heard that before. That Deuteronomy was Joshua.
I got a controversial question for you.
Oh boy.
Do you believe that God had actually? I know this is going to come off rough, but I'd actually read quite a bit of the Quran on this, so I wouldn't mind also hearing him over there, Mr. Green Souls. Do you believe that God killed Moses and then resurrected him?
Well, there is, from a Jewish standpoint, when God spoke to the Jewish people, they died. They actually had to be resurrected by God. But I don't remember it being Moses dying. I mean, Moses was the only one that could God speak through. So I heard, so I don't know. Did Moses die? That's interesting.
Well, I'm saying I did not read this in the Torah at all, or the
Oh,
Old
okay.
Testament.
Oh.
I actually had seen this particular. I'll just call it passage. They probably got another name for it in the Quran, where it states that Moses, whenever he, threw down the tablets, that he was struck. He was struck down right then and there, according to the passage, and that God brought him back to life. So I was curious what people's view on that is.
That was Moses' passion that did that. That wasn't necessarily God's. I'm not sure if that's ever. Now we have to get to that Sidra. That we have to get to that. I think it's next week.
I apologize for moving too far ahead.
No, that's fine. But yeah, I don't know if they say he dies, but that's very possible. I mean, it might have pissed God off.
Resurrection's very big in Jewish theology, so yeah.
Yeah.
I think what it had said that killed him was he was hit by lightning or something. It just, bam, knocked him down. I'll look it up because I don't want to come off, because it was a while back whenever I had read it, but I know that was one of those things that kind of was like, really? Moses? That kind of stuck in my head all this time. So let me see if I can get it for you if you're interested in seeing what I'm talking about.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
That's interesting.
I didn't know that, Reuven. They were grouped into a single scroll. Did not know that.
No, there was a documentary I seen, and I think a Roman general actually came into the temple and wanted to see what they were kind of fussing about, what they were worshiping.
Right. Yep.
Thinking that he was going to see some type of statue in the holies of like that sacred, that middle building, and they're going to see God and say, I want to see what kind of statue. And then when he goes in, there was nothing there. He was just looking around 4 walls, like, and they show it. So it was like,
It's said that the that instance, Frank, that they crucified 1,000 Jews for the crime of atheism because of that, for not having a representation of God. Is that something, huh? Atheism.
We laugh.
But it's rough.
I think this is why we don't want any representation, like statues or anything like that. Maybe it kind of.
I mean, you gotta. I mean,
brain.
It's such a Roman thing, right? Walking down the street and just seeing statues all over the place. Yeah.
What are you confused about? Oh, is she confused with Reuven? She's busy being confused with Reuven. Okay.
I guess Reuven can just talk.
Yeah, there's 24 anointed books of the Tanakh, Torah, prophets, and writings. You want me to list the books for you, Irene, so you just know off the top of your head?
Well, I have it in my little Bible thing. It says what the books are.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it separates them out as the 3, and but that's like the Christian interpretation, what I put there, and then tried to put some Hebrew words to support it, and just spelled it all up.
All right, this has it in here right in the description. I just simply typed in God kills Moses Quran, but let me see what we got here. And according to this, also Moses is very, very important to the Muslims. Let me see what we got.
So important. He's the name that's most mentioned in the Quran is Moses.
No way.
Yes, more than anyone is Moses.
Here's something right here. Let me
Moses is also very important in Islam for having been given the revelation, I'm guessing, of Mount Sinai, saw God with their own eyes. As for punishment, a thunderbolt killed them. And that's one for what surah and what verse?
There you go, right there.
Oh, that's just from the Wikipedia.
Yeah, I'm attempting to actually find it directly out of the Quran. I don't. When I'm talking biblical or Quran or anything like that, I usually like to try to get it right out of the books, not just some goofy website or whatever, you know what I mean? I'm trying to find it for you.
It's interesting. I'm not familiar with the Quran, so I can't really... And you're saying that he did this because he broke the 10 Commandments, the plates, or
according to what I was getting from it, and remember, I'm not some kind of scholar or whatever. How?
Reuven just put it, and like I said, we got to get to the scripture ahead of time.
Okay, go ahead.
God effed up the elders. It wasn't Moses, but it was the elders.
Oh, it was the courts, huh? Moses had chosen 70 elders from among the Israelites, ordered them to pray for forgiveness shortly after. The elders traveled alongside Moses to witness the speech between Moses and God. Despite witnessing the speech between them, they refused to believe until they saw God with their own eyes. As a punishment, a thunderbolt killed them.
Wow.
Ah.
Well,
Adios.
when I first read the Quran, what struck me is how they were talking about that whole event, about Mount Sinai. And it actually scared the crap out of me.
Well,
Like
there's a
literally.
few. Isn't there a few incidents when people go against Moses and they get eaten up by the earth for a
Yep, we'll
snack?
get to that. We
Yeah.
got it.
Yum yum yum. Yum yum. Don't go against Moses. That's the meaning of that lesson. Don't ever dare to do that.
Yeah, Moses is no joke, man.
That's serious. That is for real. He is no joke.
I'm having a heck of a time. I remember it was a lot easier to be able to search through stuff, but there's so much propaganda on Google now. It's just,
Oh, it's all right, Brett. No, at least we got down to the. At least you brought it up, and we got down to the nitty gritty, man. That's a good little nugget this week.
yeah, but I hate to bring up something and not have the information to back up what I'm talking about. That annoys me. I will find this.
See,
Moses is the greatest prophet for the Jews. Jesus is for the Christians. Muhammad for the Muslims, huh? I guess we all have our favorites, huh?
Moses was Muhammad was another prophet. Was the latest prophet. See, here's the other thing about prophecy, because I've heard a lot of people try to use this. That Malachi was the last prophet. Another came over, and it's like actually, and when we look farther at like in the divine code in the Sefer Sheva Mitzvah Hashem, the Gentile, the non-Jew, is not prophecy has not stopped for them. It's only stopped for Israel.
Well, isn't there? I think Reuven mentioned this before. There's a certain amount of prophets, right? Aren't there like 72 prophets altogether? But we only had 40. I want to say 48. Am I incorrect? So it leaves up to mystery. Like, where are these other prophets at? You know. And Reuven, fascinating enough, he likes to do this. He says, well, maybe for other worlds, maybe there are other projects that God has, other places, for other peoples.
Yeah, I got myself in trouble for bringing that up in a room not too long ago.
Well, the Hebrew Bible does talk about God wiping out a planet for not going against the enemies of Israel, coming to their aid. I don't know if people want to get into that, but
When you say, before we get onto that, Reuven, the seal of the prophets of Israel, in other words, the last one that sealed the deal, if you will. Okay, that's what I thought.
holy cow, Reuven, you're saying 2.6 million prophets altogether? How the hell did I only get 72 then? I don't know what I was thinking. 52 million.
Or 5.2.
5.2 million. Sorry. Oh, man. Okay, I was thinking about prophets of Israel that are in the Bible. Okay.
Well, Ruth was a prophet. Miriam was a prophet. Aaron was prophet. Yeah. But it's not sealed for humankind. The Gentile prophets will still be given to the Gentile, I think, in every generation.
So you're saying the seal of the prophets of Israel is the end for Israel. Israel is their mission's complete, essentially.
Their era of prophecy is complete.
Oh, okay.
It's not so you can't discount Muhammad, Prophet Muhammad, with Malachi, because Muhammad was not a prophet for Israel.
Nice. Okay. I haven't heard that before. Yeah.
There's nothing. I really don't think. I think that for the Chinese, who I don't mean this wrongly in any way, shape, or form, or disrespect, but they're so backwards from the West. And I say backwards. I know that sounds like I'm saying the wrong thing. I'm not, but it's reversed. Maybe is a better word. So much of their formula of speech and philosophy is almost like a yin to a west yang. You know, what's lost in the East is found in the West. What's lost in the West is found in the East. Well, you know, I really don't doubt that Buddha was a prophet, because he told everyone your gods are wrong. Walk the path. You can find it within, and once you find it within, you will be able to express it without. You'll be able to make the world, elevate the world, and convert it to a paradise, which is the essence of Buddhism.
I don't know if Green Souls wants to look this up real quick. Maybe he'd be able to interpret it differently. I believe it is in 4:24-26. You get that?
Oh, what are we on? At the Moses with the lightning bolt? Like,
Yeah. I'm still listening to you guys, but remember I told you, man, it eats me up if I don't give you something.
Have you been keeping up with the conversation? Because we just went through that.
About the thunderbolt?
It
with
wasn't Moses that got. It wasn't Moses that got killed. It was the elders.
But according to 4:24-26.
Yeah, we got it. We typed it out. We typed it out in the side chat.
Let me take a look at this.
Right up there, because it said a thunderbolt killed them, plural. It was the elders that God gave a good message. Actually, the message was for everybody else. he effed up the elders, as Reuven put it. God effed up the elders, and he spells it out too here in the chat. I don't want to say it in case there are any.
Well, what about 42:8 though?
Can you read it for us real quick?
Well, it talks. It's basically there seems to be some kind of issue with the circumcision of Moses, or not Moses, but one of his sons.
Yes. And Zipporah had to do it for him on the fly in the desert.
Reuven, how do you remember all these names? My God.
Well, this is actually kindergarten stuff for most Jews. I mean, people know this in like second grade.
Yeah.
For them, this is child's play. I mean, us goyim here bumbling around, but
I'm
we
like
make it
lost
look
in the
bad.
wilderness, like looking for freaking food or something, man.
You all right over there? We need manna to fall from God for you. We don't want to lose you there, Frank. You a little hungry?
There's so much information I got to put in. Trying to retrieve. And
Hungry spiritually. I like that.
Yeah,
You're hungry. You need to be spiritually fed. I like that.
I'm still behind 2 hours, so I'm trying to catch up.
So from the Muslim perspective, Brett, you're saying that God didn't like the way Moses messed up the circumcision of his oldest son, and there was a punishment for it.
That's in Torah too. That was a couple parshas back.
Oh, okay.
It appears as though there was some anger with God over
going to kill him.
son not being circumcised, or some issue on this. Remember, for me, it was a while back, and this is reading from the perspective of the Quran. And I will be honest with you, there are some things that I definitely need to work out when I'm reading it. A lot of people, whenever they're reading the Torah or the Bible or even the Quran, they look at it like it's just some kind of book, and if they come across any words they don't understand, they just keep going anyway. They just they don't bother. But me, when I get to something that's like iffy, I got to figure out what it is I'm reading. That's just the way I am.
Well, circumcision is very important from a Jewish perspective, and even atheist Jews, even Reformed Jews that they don't keep kosher or they don't think Torah is true, but for whatever reason they still circumcise.
Yeah.
So
I've
very important to them.
Full-blown atheist, but he keeps Torah.
Yeah.
He goes to temple, and he's an atheist. I'm like, how?
See, Reuven's saying, okay, the prophet Job, Jethro came to Ethiopia and worked against Moses, so Moses eventually fled to Midian. Into Midian. The Quran mostly draws from the Jewish and Christian traditions rather than from the Bible. At times it is difficult for someone only to familiar with the Bible to understand the Quran. Let me read that last part again. At times it is difficult for someone only familiar with the Bible to understand the Quran. Okay, I got you.
Now, hopefully this doesn't cause any kind of offense or anything, but one other thing that I noticed too from reading the Quran and reading the Old Testament is, to me, and I've gotten myself in trouble with Christians on this, because it seems to me that the same figure who is spoken of as Allah is the same authority of the Old Testament. That seems like it to me.
Well, you're not going to find problems here in this room, because we agree with that.
All right. That's interesting. I was kind of rearing back a little bit, waiting for the fist to fly, but
You're not going to get any fist flying, but you're definitely going to get some twitching over here.
well, me might not like this. I think the Hebrew people and the Hebrew traditions are compatible with the Muslims and what they believe. When it comes to Christians, though, that's a different story.
what Reuven says, there are qualities of Allah that are not true. Can you explain the differences on this?
He says by why am I saying washing? Okay, worshiping Allah, Muslims are. Wait, what does he say? Muslims do worship the God of Abraham. I don't understand. Oh, I see. Reuven types in, Allah is the greatest of all deceivers. God is not a deceiver.
Oh boy, that's.
Well, that's something Muslims claim. Isn't that something Muslims say that God, Allah is?
Well,
Who would also be the greatest deceiver?
I've seen some things in the Quran where it speaks of. It uses the concept sealing the heart, but it almost sounds like hardening the heart. Just as whenever you read, about situations with like the Pharaoh.
Exodus 13.
Oh, I did not know that the Quran, Allah says He calls Himself the deceiver. That's interesting.
Well, he's going to deceive you to test your faith. If I'm not mistaken, that was the context of the story. Where's Suki when I need him?
Well, one would be really hard pressed to sit there and argue against, and I'm talking Bible now. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 11 through 15, and this is all out of memory. It says that God deceived certain individuals. So, what can anyone do with that? Still, I'm not seeing how they're different. Go ahead.
I'm not familiar with the New Testament, but I mean, God is able to do anything He wants. If He wants to deceive someone, yeah, it's His will.
Look at Job. I mean, he worked to deceive him like a mother, but deceit couldn't touch him because he knew where his priorities were. I mean,
it does sound strange, though, Brett. I give you that. Thinking of God as a deceiver does seem a little,
It doesn't really. For me, I know that if we were in a room with non-believers, they'd probably start slapping their own foreheads and squealing about it. But for me, God is God. He can do whatever He wants. And when I hear the word deceive, there's a couple different ways you can look at it. Sometimes someone could say that a parent is deceiving their child by not explaining to them adult issues or revealing to them. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's how I look at it. I don't think that when it's saying deceive, it's meaning that God's, cheating at chess on you or something.
Something tells me he'd win every time anyway.
Yeah, he's got pro skill.
I'm trying to find the story in Exodus about Zipporah having to circumcise. Someone's being bad in the other room. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, she's up past her bedtime.
Reuven says here, by they, the Jews, were deceived, and Allah was deceptive, for Allah is the best of deceivers. And then he types it in, I'm guessing, Arabic. Walum Karu, Wamakaru, I don't know.
God sent a Satan through David to be an adversary to the children of Israel. Count them. How many times have the Jews how many times do we find in the prophecies that the Jews go astray? I mean, yes, they eventually come back, but they've screwed up a few times. We're about to see it here in another Parsha or two. Even when they just saw God, like you were saying, I mean, he was right I mean, everybody knew. They heard God. They saw the voice of God speak.
Someone just joined. Yeah, it's like there's so many. It's consistent with the Bible. Like it just doesn't. It doesn't matter. Adam and Eve. Like it just same story over and over again.
You know, I've had a little bit of this kind of conversation with Christians on this particular issue. How does God handle this particular situation when it comes to the status of deception? You know, a lot of people are surprised whenever I bring a passage to them. All of you probably recall whenever it says that Christ went up to have this interaction with the devil, right? You guys obviously recall this. Well, a lot of Christians are shocked whenever I share with them that the passage says God led Christ up into this interaction. Yeah. So
I remember that one as a kid.
Yeah. Well, some people obviously had that conclusion that God and Jesus, of course, are the same, whether they're oneness or Trinitarians, but it clearly says that God led Christ up there to have this.
I just want to say welcome to the room, LB Joshua. Looks like you took a nude shot in the bathroom. Just let you know, this is a live hangout. Please don't do any live nudes. No penis helicopters. No showing us your butthole or anything like that. Keep that off here. All right. Welcome to the room, though. Just keep it kosher for us. All right.
25, Exodus 4:22. And it came to pass on the way to the lodging place that the Lord met him and sought to kill him, Moses. Then Zipporah took a flint and cut off the foreskin of her son and cast it at his feet. And she said, "Surely the bridegroom of blood art thou to me." So he let him alone. And he said, "A bridegroom of blood in regard for the circumcision." And the Lord said to Aaron, "Okay, go in the wilderness and meet Moses." So yeah, circumcised him right then and there in the desert. And what's thing is the Lord sought to kill Moses, and Zipporah knew it. There's no mention that Moses knew what was going on. Women in Judaism have this heightened sense of spirituality. That's a good example. Yeah, God was out to kill Moses. That's in Torah as well. Probably got caught up in all the zhush of the Exodus, and which was probably trying enough, and just spoke to God, and probably wasn't thinking, was a little busy, but Zipporah took care of it. Bless her.
How many wives did Moses have? 2, 3?
He sent a snake to swallow Moses. I did not know that. Ooh.
Do you? That's an interesting thing I could bring up for you, Idol. Do you think that the reason why in the past they were so much for the concept of having a few wives was for survival points of being able to reproduce their lineage?
Probably, or he wants more kids and she doesn't.
Well,
it's simply because
I wouldn't mind hearing it, but if you have a wife that ends up, passing or whatever, then you'd be in some trouble there, wouldn't you? So, especially in those type of times, war all the time, killing, destruction, plagues, yikes. Tough.
It's usually women are usually more of the population, right? So wouldn't you have, women who are not going to be married? They're going to have, the only option would be to take on a marriage where a man is already married.
Sometimes,
unless they don't want to have kids, which wouldn't be a mitzvah, so that wouldn't be a Jewish thing to do.
And
go ahead.
She'd still be taken care of, and she'd still be head of the household. Don't get me wrong, but the second wife, the sister wife, would, if he wants more kids and one wife doesn't want it. And I'm sure for survival too, but it's not like it was. I'm pretty sure, and Reuven, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think polygamy was exactly a common thing. It just was never seen as
it's allowed. It's kosher. Yeah, it's hard to do it because you have to prove that you're able to do it.
And then the other thing you have.
Really?
You have so many rules.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was reading what Reuven was saying. Okay, so during the diaspora, it only became common, and even then, Okay, go ahead, Hermine. I'm sorry.
Well, the thing I was learning too is you can't have sex with your wife while she's on her period 7 days after she's off her period. Am I getting this right?
There's a time when she's not clean. Yeah.
Right. So I'm thinking you have to have 2 wives if you're most dudes that I know. Because they can handle the 3 or 4 days on the period, but you add 7 more and they're like, oh, man.
Well, that's when and the men do their own thing. That's the time when men go do what they got to do out in the world. They have a hobby or they're fixing around the house or whatnot. But when the woman it's like heel boy.
I don't know if this is a myth or not, Hermine. Maybe you can fix this, and I probably shouldn't bring this up because it's kind of harsh. But isn't there something out there medically where women tend to in sync with each other anyway on this particular process?
Yeah, so even if he has a second wife, she's not be able to get occupied either. I like that. Yeah.
I could be
it's
wrong.
Almost like God's way,
doctor,
right?
But
Yeah.
I've got sister, wife, all that kind of thing, and I
Reuven,
heard about that.
Reuven made the point I was going to make, which is they wouldn't live under the same roof.
Can't even sleep in the same bed when a woman is menstruating.
Which is so nice, because it's like you don't even want dudes around when you're menstruating. You're like, leave me alone. I don't want to be around anybody.
Yeah, it's dangerous too at times. No, I'm just kidding.
What you got for us, LB? You got a question for Noachides? This is a Noachide Jewish room.
Well, obviously that would be yes, that would be something that I would like to be inquisitive about. Is what exactly the particular topic of conversation is?
We just finished the weekly Torah reading. Every week we read a portion of the Torah for the year, each week, and we just wrapped it up. We were in Exodus chapter 25 to chapter 27, it was, I think.
Okay.
Through 27.
Through 27, yeah.
Okay, so you're reading it sequentially, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
yes,
every there's a portion, and we started over every year after Rosh Hashanah, or after Yom Kippur.
Okay.
And we did talk about something earlier. You would have been pretty interested in, Joshua, because according to your Google Plus, it says that you're seeking out things and subjects having to do with math. We actually went through a whole architecture and mathematical equation, didn't we? There were green and idle and dubs.
Yeah, that's something. It's an interest of mine.
So, Joshua, what's your religious and political persuasions?
Well, religiously, I identify as agnostic. I can't even speak tonight. I'm usually fairly eloquent. That's classical opera training for you. Excuse me. I'm actually atheist agnostic, or vice versa. The reason I use that terminology is because I actually use those two terms because depending on different definitions of deity, I employ one of those definitions themselves.
Agnostic atheist, that seems kind of weird, like you're not sure whether or not you lack a belief in
Well,
deity.
let me elaborate. Then I'll get to my.
Well, Joshua, there's nothing that you can say to explain this to us because I lack a belief in atheist and agnostic. So,
well, I was just going to explain my definition. That's all I was going to do.
Go ahead. We're just goofing. Don't listen. Go ahead.
That's okay. I'm pretty patient. I grew up in fundamentalist Christianity all my life. You can't do nothing to push me over the edge, I promise you.
Oh, you've come to the dark side. We have cookies.
I grew up in independent Baptist schools, like in denominations very similar to Westboro Baptist. You all have nothing.
Oh, wow.
No wonder you an atheist. I can't blame you.
But I'm actually very open-minded, though. I'm not like a lot of belligerent atheist agnostics on Google or the larger part of the internet. I'm actually somebody that's very patient and actually will listen, which is oddly enough unusual regardless of religious persuasion or lack thereof. It's quite interesting. But going back to what I was saying is, well, if we define God, for example, in classical notions of deity, for example, an anamorphized being that sits up in the clouds or something to that base, something that is sentient or being.
Mr. Joshua, we're not in a...
Finish!
It's not a debate room.
I'm not debating.
Finish, man.
I'm simply I'm simply just explaining why I use these terms. That's all I'm saying. I'm not debating anyone. I'm not in a mood to debate tonight. I'm having my pizza. I'm not trying to debate. Trust me.
I know. We know. Go ahead, please.
Excuse me. And basically, when it comes to that definition of God that's employed in certain religions and belief systems or ideologies, I'm an atheist to that extent that I do not believe in classical notions of deity. Now, if God, for example, is defined as something that's more akin, shall we say, to Eastern thought or philosophy, which I might not even use the term God, but such in Hinduism, where it's used to describe the ultimate reality like Brahma or consciousness or something of that nature, then I'm more agnostic towards that. So that's the only reason why I use those two new definitions, because some people have a belief in God in a classical sense of deity, and so in that regards, to them that conveys the understanding that I do not believe in that, and to any other what I would call higher notions of God, at least some that's even been talked about in Christian theology, I'm agnostic towards those. So that's why I use that definition. They're not synonymous with each other, or nor do I use them interchangeably.
Well, you might find it interesting that as Noachides, we're prohibited from creating images of God, and we're prohibited from worshiping anything in creation, including ideas.
Yeah, ideas are unfortunately something that becomes all too sacred, and I believe in no, I don't believe any idea can hold any claim to being sacred. So.
I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but does somebody have music on in the background?
Unfortunately, that's me, I'm afraid. I'm at work currently, so this is the only way I can verbally converse, and I hate typing, which I know may be a pet peeve to other people, but it's not my strongest suit, nor does it really help to convey what I'm actually thinking.
I'm going to ask a favor. Because it's a Hangout on air, if that music gets pulled through, they'll actually pull the show, and they'll flag it.
They've tagged us before because of things like that, man.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, the TPP and other acts of legislation are going to try to take any rights we have away. So, yeah.
All right, well, can you do something about the volume?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. I turned it down already, but if you'll just give me a second, I'll turn it down even further. There ain't nobody else here in the gym but me anyway, and I hate this genre of music, being a musician, so just give me a sec, please.
Jim.
I'm going to mute you in the meantime. You can come back and unmute yourself.
So may I answer your question? Yeah, we don't believe in old white man in the cloud with a bear that grants wishes or anything like that, or universal consciousness. No.
Well, there is something like a universal consciousness, I believe. I think that there's.
Is that better?
Something along those lines. Yes, sir.
Okay. Wonderful.
There is something that connects us. There is a consciousness that we will achieve, that we talked about earlier, that when mankind achieves this utopian state, there will be a bit of a universal consciousness floating around the earth. We wouldn't call it God, of course, but that'd be stupid. But obviously, having universal consciousness, wasn't God, so never mind. Something like that, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
For me, for example, some of the thoughts of ideas that I'm more persuaded by, to give you an understanding of what I mean by that, is I'm kind of at a cross between idealism and panpsychism. So that's kind of where a lot of my thought and stuff goes in that direction. I find both of those pretty compelling. Some of the critiques of materialism that I've read can be pretty devastating, and that's why I'm not sold on the idea philosophically. So, that's one of the reasons why I'm more agnostic toward the idea of a ultimate reality or higher intelligence or anything like that. Is the arguments for materialism or materialistic monism, to me, are just not strong enough, and they have too many problems. So that's one of the reasons why I'm pretty open-minded, I suppose.
Well, you won't find a lot of argument here on that. You sound kind of Jewish, actually.
Which is ironic, because I'm Indo-European. I had my genes sequenced earlier last year. It's kind of funny.
Really? What's Indo-European?
Well, I'm entirely European. I have no ancestry whatsoever of any other ethnic group whatsoever, whether it be African American, Native American, Hispanic or not. There's not a trace of it anywhere in my DNA.
Wait, I thought they're only testing the mitochondria.
I'm not exactly sure how the testing works, because mine was sequenced, but there was no indicator of anything like that. They broke it down into percentages, My largest heritage is actually from the Germanic tribes around Western Europe, followed closely by Great Britain and Ireland.
You can't say that you have none of that in you. What you can say, if none of your moms had that.
So I mean, it's you know, pretty much. I mean, like you said, there's really no such thing as purebred. Otherwise, I'd probably be Neanderthal, or Cro-Magnon, though that case has been made before because of my physical appearance. I'm quite broad and, you know, very stout and things of that nature, and very primitive looking, and I have a deep voice, so it kind of goes. But based on what I've seen so far, I mean, there's no indication of that, though you may in fact be correct. The analysis may be skewed or part, you know, or biased in some way.
No, it's not biased. It's just all it can test is the women right now.
So,
and there's only three, and there's 3 main mitochondria in the world.
Yeah.
Only 3. 3 wives, or 3 of the daughter, or 3 of the women on Noah's Ark, which is interesting.
That is really interesting.
This was written 3,000 years ago, 3,500 years ago.
So
anyway,
yep, that's just that's a bit of my. Go ahead. I don't even know what I was going to say. Probably something stupid. So go ahead.
Oh well. We can
all welcome. I'd like to say welcome, LB.
Oh well, thank you.
Yeah, welcome. And this is the Nut Hutch. Welcome aboard. We do this every Thursday. It's a scholarly look at the Hebrew texts, the ancient Torah.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you ever got a question, you know, people come in. I mean, we always ask questions. Everybody asks questions, and it's just we learn and have fun and dig it. And it's not your normal hangout.
Yeah, that's good because I go a lot of times in the other skeptical or atheist chat rooms, and so often than not, it just turns into a mudslinging, name-calling thing, even amongst themselves, and I really have no time for that nonsense. I mean, for people supposedly, you know, I'm not a part of the skeptical movement, for people supposedly of an advanced intellect, the behavioral aspects of it are not displayed in almost any capacity, unfortunately, so it just, it gets really, really old. I like people that are chilled, you know, at least just relax, even if they have strong disagreements. I cannot stand the prepubescent ways of behaving that they do. So that's just me.
Except when I'm the one acting like the prepubescent.
Well, I'm sure that there's controls and things in that and checks and balances to make sure that nothing gets too out of hand. You know, so I don't know. I was just trying to make a joke. My dry sense of humor failing me again.
We've been at this since like 8:30, so.
Yeah, this looks like you're running in there. Heck, this is kind of like my mornings because I work third shift. So.
Oh, what do you do?
Well, I work security at a gym during nights. I guess because of my martial arts background and stuff, they thought that was attractive.
Wait. Why do you need security at a gym?
You'd be surprised what wanders in here at 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes.
Oh my gosh, that's ridiculous.
A lot of crackheads and meth heads. Well, not a lot, but on occasion they'll wander in here, and they can be a bit unpredictable.
Wow.
Well, it is late. It's open and welcoming and inviting and healthy.
Well, depends on who's on roids or not. So, you never know. I've already had people offer to get me hooked up, and I'm like, I just laughed at them, and then they got the idea.
This was such a chill hangout. Last night's hangout, I had to actually have a drink.
You had to what?
I had to have a drink last night.
Really?
It was unbelievable. Yeah.
Oh, you had a hangout last night.
What happened?
Everybody could steal the equipment. It's all pretty heavy. I'm sorry, I was just reading the chat. Somebody said presumably not to steal the equipment. It'd be more trouble than it's worth to steal the equipment here. It's all bolted down. But anyway, I was just thinking out loud in response, I guess.
I mean,
yeah.
What were you saying just now?
Oh, no, it was a hangout. We duked it out. It was me and Tommy. I told him off.
This was your hangout, what I was asking.
No, it was Brett's, I think.
Okay. Okay, it was before I got there, I guess. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and He just made a couple assertions that like half of the room went ape doo-doo over. And I don't know that we should bring it up in too much detail because it's, I think I'd probably foul it all up now, and I don't even want to go there. But I was just really, yesterday was a troubling day.
Wow.
I thought he was trolling. I couldn't think he was possibly serious, but he was.
Well, if you want any consolation, I had a guy. I can't remember his name, but he was African American, and he tried to advocate the pros of slavery to me one Hangout, and I was kind of confused. Um, he was trying to cite a biblical passage of some kind. I think it was in the Torah, or maybe even the larger work known as the Tanakh or Old Testament. And I really didn't even know how to respond.
Well, I think the difference is, if we talk about antebellum slavery, I think we all know why that's wrong, right? If we talk about slavery as the Bible talks about it in some aspects, I don't know that you could say it's as wrong. It's a bit more gray.
Well, there was something that he wasn't very gray about his argumentation, though. He was pretty definitive and certain in that, and I guess maybe that's what bothered me most, because whether or not there's biblical justification for certain models of slavery or not is entirely different issue that, since I don't believe, I'm not going to get into. But the certitude that he expressed is something that I found kind of disturbing, because when people become very certain in their ideas to a degree of absolutism, then I begin to become a little worried. And so that's one of the reasons why I eventually just had to, I called him a few names and probably a few choice words, which is very rare for me. But I found the conversation so incredibly idiotic that I felt like that, I don't know. I was having a moment of, I guess, emotional weakness, I suppose. But I guess because the environment that I grew up in myself was very Orwellian in terms of the religions that I was brought up in, as well as the schools, which were essentially cultic. To give you an idea, in one of the schools, we actually had to salute the pastor who had founded the school every time he entered the schoolroom. And I got many paddlings for my desecration of that wonderful ceremony, because I would give him the salute I thought he deserved, and it was Sieg Heil mein Führer. And that didn't go over very well, despite posters of Robert E. Lee and Confederacy linked all across the school. So maybe that's one of the reasons why I went a little off on him. But anyway.
Do you remember his name?
Not entirely sure. He just started lambasting me with a bunch of proclamations and assumptions, which is all fine and wonderful. But I refuse to debate people like that. If they try to talk over you and they don't give you time to respond within reason and without interruption, I kind of look down at people like that. So I really didn't get a chance to know him. People can't seem to keep their emotions in check, and that seems to be a very common feature among many Hangouts that I've been involved with thus far, is that I don't know if it's because they feel they have some cloak of anonymity being on the web or not, but either way, I don't know. It's just, I don't know, maybe it's a lost art or dying art, I really don't know.
Yeah, I'm me on the internet, so I can't really act the fool.
Yeah, I am to a large extent. I mean, I can definitely be goofy. I mean, I'm being pretty serious right now, though I very seldom take things seriously. Too seriously, at least. But now, once I get to know people and I gauge how far I can go with them, then I'll let loose and I'll be a lot more fun. But there's usually a grace period to where I get to know someone or someone's to figure out how far I can take my unique, often controversial type of humor. But there's a lot of people that don't have that type of studied approach. They just, broadcast it. And, I used to do that, and I don't find it very useful. So whatever floats their boat, I suppose.
Well, let me ask you a question. How long have you been on Google Plus?
Off and on, I've been on quite a while because a lot of times I have a very intimate love-hate relationship with the internet,
Mm-hmm.
technology in general. So oftentimes I delete profiles and accounts and I reactivate them, and it goes sporadically for months sometimes, depending on how depressed I get online, which is often. And currently, I've been on Google Plus for probably a few months now, I would assume.
I've just never met you. Pleasure.
Oh, thank you. I just don't. I don't interact with people that often because, as I referenced earlier, I'm having deja vu right now. It's interesting. Um, Most people just don't have any basic notions of civility.
Well,
And
what did you jump into this hangout?
well, being a former Christian and somebody that used to study the Bible, howbeit not as in depth as I probably should have in the time. I mean, the topics. There's a lot of topics that interest me. I like to think I have a very eclectic range, of acumen, and I'm fascinated by a lot of different topics, ranging everything from religion to physics to human sexuality to biology to philosophy. I mean, I have a very I also love social economic issues and political concerns, which hasn't even, y'all asked me what my political affiliation was, and I haven't even got the answer to that, so I guess this would be a good time, but I'm actually what I would identify as a non-Marxist democratic socialist. So that's my political views. It's very similar to like George Orwell, who is one of my all-time favorite authors.
Mm.
And so that was one of the things I saw, because I go looking for hangouts a lot of times to get on the air with and who are actually inviting people to participate. And
How'd you hear about us?
well, I was just browsing.
Oh.
I was just browsing on the hangouts, and I saw a link to where I could join, and it was, something Hebraic in origin, and it was religious, and my familiarity with any real sense of Judaism in any real context or anything like that is very limited. And besides the popularized messianic phenomenon that I had in a lot of the charismatic circles when I was a music minister. And so I thought I would listen at least, Maybe I was hoping more than anything, honestly, for a civil conversation that I may possibly join about this particular topic or any others. And so, that's one of the main reasons I did, because I live in a very small town, and there's not a lot of intellectual interaction I have because most of the people are fundamentalist Christians. They're very dumb, and I know that's a very broad generalization, but it's true because I used to serve in all their ministries, and so any type of stimulation gets kind of you become wanted. You're deprived of that, and I've kind of made a reputation for myself being kicked out of a couple of local churches, which I'm very proud of, and causing a bit of a stir and being very controversial and vocal. And so, besides that, and
I've never heard of anybody getting kicked out of a church.
I've been kicked out of 2 so far. I used to serve in both of them too.
Wow.
Well, I'm a lot more tame than when I was several years ago. I used to be a little bit of a firecracker, if you want to say that back then.
Where is home for you?
Do what?
Where is home?
That's a deep philosophical question, actually. I'm not originally from. I live in Tennessee.
Okay,
but I'm not from here originally. I mean, very few people can actually determine where I'm from based on my accent because I lost it. I'm actually from redneck capital, probably the United States. I'm from the Appalachian Mountains in East Kentucky, and
I'm from up there.
Oh, really?
Most of my family's from Appalachia.
Oh, really? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they've done several documentaries about my hometown, so anybody wants to go watch a train wreck on YouTube, there's a few out there. It's the
Moonshine Show?
Do what?
Is the Moonshine?
Oh, it's mostly meth.
Oh.
Meth and narcotics, predominantly. I'm from Clay County. I'm from Clay County, Kentucky, actually. There's been at least 2 documentaries that I'm aware of that have actually taken place in that county where I'm from. If I had stayed there, I would have been dead by now, or, totally devastated by meth or a combination of narcotics.
Wait, why are drugs so serious in that area?
It's a very complicated problem. Well, if you go back to the history of Appalachia, there's been a lot of abuse. There's been a lot of corruption. A lot of times with the coal mining companies themselves, corrupt unions. They would also be employed there. I mean, they would act out a lot of times in violent hostility. The workers were being just absolutely. I mean, it was essential. It was almost slavery. I mean, it was extremely bad. And since most of the economic development, in terms of coal, and Kentucky is one of the leading states in tobacco, a lot of that market has driven down. A lot of employment and businesses have gone out of that area. And so what helps to fill that economic void is, illicit drugs. That's known predominantly for meth, but since it's harder to tally up and to really know the full extent, I would say myself, based on where I'm from and having lived there, that narcotics, prescription narcotics specifically, is probably really the main. I would say it probably even edges out meth in terms of being a destroyer of lives and of the communities. It's I could actually send everybody several links to things that have been done about mine.
What's strange for me is, why don't, if people see all this bad stuff going on with the drugs, why do they even try it?
Well, because, the thing is, there's not a lot of thinking that goes on there as well. You have a good night, man. I was the same by to a customer. Well, the thing is, too, is, you have a society that's very much insulated, even by today's standards. They're very, very backwards in a lot of ways. They're very stubborn. They're very distrustful of anything outsider, as they call it. I mean, because they're rooted predominantly, in a Scots-Irish clannish mentality, and they hate any outside ideas or people, for that matter. Even I could give you examples of people that were married into my family 20+ years that are still not even really accepted into the fold. That's how clannish they are. It's destructive, but that's what they are. And so there's no other opportunities. There's crime. I'm from a little place in Clay County called Crawfish. It's a place that it's actually called Hima, Kentucky, where the police will not even go up there unless there's a dead body. It's just that bad. And the drugs and stuff often both an economic escape and mental escape, as we could call it. So there is so many different layers and stuff to the issue. I personally give up on that. I think it's a lost cause because it's just something that. So.
All right, so back to the Torah. Thanks for giving me everything. I did ask a lot of questions.
I hope it gets better out there, I think that the problem probably goes deeper than just the substance.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There's got to be some spiritual cleansing up there of some sort.
There's enough religion, I know that.
Well, maybe they need to be freed of their idols. You know what I mean?
Well, I can tell you this much. My grandfather and great-grandfather were both holiness Pentecostal pastors.
Yeah,
and,
well, we try. That's fine.
And that's something that I have not seen remedy any situation up there, even within their personal and family lives or larger as a whole. I mean, I see it as something that, at best, offers a distraction for several hours on a Saturday night. And at worst is a denial of reality. I mean, for that culture, I see it that way.
Yeah. Oh no. Well. Yeah. There's some things some issues they probably need to work out. In the Noachide, are you familiar with what a Noachide is?
No, I am not.
Okay. It's called Noah's Nest, but a Noachide. A Noachide is a literally means B'nai Noach means in Hebrew a child of Noah. Since all humanity comes from Noah in the Torah, we are Noachides. But there's 7 laws that were given to all humanity, and a lot of people take the Hebrew Bible and learn it through kind of like the lens of a Christian, which is you get the gist of it, but you're not getting a few things right. Like a lot of the Bible doesn't exactly apply to the common man. It applies to Jews, and people try to utilize that stuff for their own, and not for nefarious purposes, but for to try and make it their own as best they know how, and it can often lead to some pretty perverse consequences, if you will, for doing so. And religion's got an issue with it right now. It's actually changing. Really, it is. I know it's in an isolated town up there. I know what you're talking about. I understand. Yeah, there's 7 laws. Okay, I just want to give you the 7 laws real quick, just so you'll know where you're at. This nut hutch. The laws that we are, there's 6 that we don't do and 7 that we do. This is what was given to, this was the covenant, the contract given with Noah and all his children, which means all humanity. Okay, you're prohibited from idolatry. That's the worship of created things, like I mentioned earlier, even ideas. You don't use the name of God to curse God. You can't blaspheme, which is actually the raw meaning of blasphemy. You don't curse your creator. You don't murder, which includes personal injury and slander, because when you murder a character, that's murder in God's eyes. You've got theft, which would also include, like robbery, of course, but like fraud, lying, contracts, bearing false witness, that sort of thing. Illicit sexual relations, can't do a sheep, can't do your sister, that sort of thing, made pretty well clear. And eating the flesh torn from a living animal. It's a matter of a cruelty. And how we treat the vegetable, how we treat the animal. The 7th law is the only positive commandment, which is a commandment to set up fair and balanced courts of justice to regulate the other 6. Every human being does this. Every human being is doing good. That's the definition of righteous to the common man from the Hebrew Bible, and that's who I am, J-Dubs, and that's who starts this. This is a Noachide thing. So we stand over there with the Jews, but we're not Jews, but we're not Christians necessarily either. We're not Muslim necessarily. However, there are Muslim Noachides. Everybody's a Noachide. Anybody who keeps this can be called a Noachide fully. Everybody's a Noachite, but Noachide is more of an adjective with a D, if that makes any sense. So there you go. That's a Noachide. That's where you're at right now. It's a very legal thing. It's real nerdy on the law, real nerdy on keeping justice and righteousness in your community, and that's the sort of stuff. Maybe as a security guard, it might relate to you. I don't know. Peacekeepers, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm officially a security guard, but I think my position is more of just a glorified babysitter because most people behave. I mean, officially, sometimes you do have, as I mentioned earlier, the stragglers that come in the morning. So far, they haven't shown any hostility, but considering where I live, which isn't all that much different from where I'm from, I would say it's inevitable someday, and they wanted somebody, I guess, that could handle themselves, so protect what little assets they have.
I love Memphis, Tennessee. That's one of my favorite towns in all.
Ooh, I will never go back there if I can help it. I felt totally out of place.
I'm an Elvis fan. I feel at home.
No, I went to Graceland and
25, 30 years.
That was enough for me. Yeah,
and Mississippi, you want to get on a riverboat, man.
No,
it's
thank you.
On water, but it's like big.
I don't think my kind would do very well any more southern than where I am now. I mean, it's already rough in spots, but I don't think I would be very well appreciated in Mississippi and states of that nature, especially considering certain things about my personality.
It's not like that.
Well, when you're openly gay, that doesn't really help anything.
The farther west you get, the less you get of that. Really. The farther west you get, the less. I mean, that's some old blood, man. I mean, Hatfields and McCoys weren't the only feuds that happened on that land.
Yeah,
I know.
Boulder, Colorado, man, it's pretty awesome.
I've heard a lot of good things about it, but the weather. I'm usually someone that enjoys the cold. Maybe it's ancestry, but this year it's been even too much for me. And I'm a big guy too. I mean, I'm average height, but I'm a big dude, and I just want somewhere that's even keel. But California is way too expensive. I haven't been there in so many years. Now Seattle's always been a place that I've been interested in, mostly because my favorite bands come from there, not grunge. So I'm not throwing that out there, but I've thought about that place too.
We have 300 plus days of sunshine a year. The problem is everybody just sees our mountains and goes, oh, snow. But it's not that bad on the plains.
I think, well, Seattle's mostly a city, I guess, noted for rain.
Oh, it's dreary.
Yeah, I kind of like that, actually. I don't like bitter cold, but I like that kind of look. I find it very soothing and relaxing, where a lot of people find it depressing.
I hate even driving in the rain.
I love it. I mean, to me, there was something almost ethereal about it. I don't know why, but I mean, it conjures up a lot of, I guess, what we could call mystical idealizations in me whenever I'm in the rain. The summer, in the warm weather, to me, is something that feels oppressive. I mean, if that makes any sense, it feels constraining. I mean, a lot of people see it as freeing, you know, coming out from the dark, dungy depth of the cold. But to me, it's like I'm almost vampiric, you know. I don't know. I really don't. I don't really like the heat and the sun that much. Maybe it's my low baseball voice. I don't know.
I long for baseball. I'm ready.
I hate sports, so that doesn't give me a lot of commonality with people. I'm just a nerd.
we got a minor league team out here, and I'm pretty anxious. I just love that time of year and the pace and.
Oh yeah, just have like a cup of hot dogs and peanuts and a beer.
Yeah, a AAA game or AA game.
Yeah.
That's people playing because they want to play, not because they're paid.
I better show my face. I'm tired of hiding. Here I am, fully nude, as you can see.
Oh.
As people had brought that up earlier, so I thought I'd make a dry comment or something about it. There I am, in the buff for all the world to see. I really wish I had a glass of Merlot right now. I just said that.
Move your camera angle so we're not catching the TV in the back?
Yeah, that's all that. Right. My Chromebook's working pretty good. I updated it. Not that many people care, but it's a nice drop. It. Yeah, I had it on History Channel. I was watching Vikings. Some of my ancestors, probably. Well, the Germanic tribes, definitely. So.
Really?
Do what?
Well, is it? Well, Reuven said the same. He said, "I loathe sports." I said, "Is it the idea, the notion of sport, or is it just the commercial? You know, kind of."
I see sports as a tool of controlling the masses.
Amen.
A very powerful tool.
What about a workforce? What about some guys who put a softball league together and go play?
Oh, if they want to do that on their own, I mean, I guess I would say the commercialization is something that's a very big issue with me. Now, people have played sports since time began. That's obviously nothing new, and nor is it anything that's going away. But the whole media commercialized aspect of sports, such as the NFL, NBA, or anybody else like that, that is something I have a hard time with because it's so easy to work a crowd into a frenzy at these type of events, regardless of the sport. And I think it's also a very, very well thought out distraction. That's been meticulously planned and so ingrained in the cultural reference frame, you know, in our, well, I guess we could call unconscious, that it can elicit such strong emotion so quickly, and most of the human population is not equipped to think about these things very critically, which is evolutionary advantageous, I believe. And so I'm very leery of things like that. That's just how I am, though.
I understand. Reuven says over here in the chat, I loathe sports. It's a replacement for bleeding the population in war. Moreover, it's a distraction from the real issues.
I totally agree.
There's been a here in the room. I shed a tear. Throwing a ball around's fun, you know? Maybe it is, but, you know, if you work and you get off, and it's a great way to relieve stress, and, you know.
Well, I also believe that certain other, what could be considered illicit activity is a great stress reliever, but that is just me personally. Of course, everybody has their own methodology for de-stressing. Sometimes I meditate, which is more and more rare nowadays, but sometimes I meditate. I don't believe in clearing my mind because I know that's an impossibility. I'm on the autism spectrum. That's not going to happen. And I do things like that, and I think, as I said, I enjoy illicit activities. I'm not narcotics or drugs or any of that nature particularly, but things that involve more physical processes. And, you know, that's basically how I do it. But sometimes if I want to relax, I'll watch a video on quantum mechanics or something. So that's what I do.
I enjoy quantum physics.
It's very interesting. I mean, there's been a lot more headway being made too, and I love the intersection of quantum mechanics and philosophy of mind and things of that nature. I think that's just wonderful, amazing. I had a conversation with David Chalmers not long ago. I was hoping to interview him because I used to have my own podcast. You know, I don't have a very good radio voice, but hey, I thought I would try anyway. And so, unfortunately, it never came to fruition. I was really hoping to interview him, so that was a disappointment.
Yeah.
Do you watch anything on Sam? I'm sorry.
Go to the mic. Speak.
I was going to ask him if he ever watches. Lawrence Krauss has a panel that he does.
I almost got to interview him once too.
Get out of town.
Yeah, I was I'm part of a group, even though I haven't been active in a while, called the New Covenant Group. They had him on one of their sessions. Of course, it's a web show. They had him, and they've had P.Z. Myers as well, in addition to some other, well, people I hope to never meet again. Because, well, they had Kent Halvin's son, of course, Eric Halvin, and then Cy Tim Brudenkate on there, which I'm sure you're familiar with those. Unfortunately, most of the internet is now. And they were on there one time. They're the only people that have been actually kicked off the show. And I actually met Kent Halvin before he went to prison for tax evasion because he visited the school that I went to promote younger creationism. Mm-hmm. And that was a sad day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got close. I was going to ask the host, whose name's Dr. Jones, if I could be on the interview panel for him, but it was too late. They already got everybody lined up. Because I was going to ask him some really hard questions because he can be very abrasive and obnoxious like me. And I thought that him and I could get along because he's on the autism spectrum too. I mean, anybody that studies particle physics or cosmology, you've got to be a pretty big nerd. And I mean, I could tell it a mile away. So, I mean, when he was on the show, he was totally autistic. He's like me now. He's rambling on and on and on. I'm like, dude, you're so freaking autistic. Have you ever been diagnosed? It's so obvious. But anyway. So, yeah, I'm familiar with what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, obviously Lawrence Krauss, I have issues with some of the things he says, but I mean, him and David Gross are two people that I respect for their work, at least, you know.
I respect him for his work in his field. When he gets into philosophy, he needs to shut up, in my opinion. He really does. He needs to shut his mouth. He has absolutely no business.
He's a bad guy about it. He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
No, he really doesn't. He really doesn't.
It's okay to not know about it, but yeah,
he pretends it.
Stick to the evidence.
Yeah, I mean, he was, you know, I don't like William Lane Craig, mostly just because I disagree with his argumentation. But in terms of a debate that he had with Lawrence Krauss in Australia, I don't know if it was in Melbourne or Sydney, to me, William Lane Craig wiped the floor with him. I mean, it was embarrassing for me to even watch. And there's been other people, such as Christopher Hitchens, that handled him far more gracefully. And it was well done, but Lawrence Krauss, I was wanting to go do the old Southern thing. Oh, Lord bless his heart. He don't need to be debate no more. I mean, I almost felt sorry for him. And I think what made it worse is that he didn't realize how badly he was getting destroyed in the debate. He just kept on, you know.
Yeah, he had a lot of philosophical fallacies, which William Lane Craig is a you know, he's a master of the philosophical side as far as that's concerned. Doesn't mean I agree with everything he says either.
Well, he's an excellent debater.
He's a great debater.
You know, and rhetoric and being an orator. He's wonderful at that. But Lawrence Krauss, stick to particle physics and cosmology. Just stay there in your little field there and don't embarrass yourself.
I think that's why Dawkins won't debate William, is because you know, now obviously, you know, if the contention was something, you know, regarding evolutionary biology, I doubt William and Craig would do that. But the philosophical aspect, I'm pretty sure he would get destroyed by William.
Yeah, there was of course, I'm sure you've seen the debate between Dawkins and Lennox not long after the God Delusion came out. Yeah. And Lennox gave him kind of a runaround in a lot of places. John Lennox. And I'm saying, boy, if you went up against Craig, you would get destroyed. But I think Dawkins is kind of, I agree that he kind of takes kind of a cowardly role in saying that he won't debate fundamentalists, which in a way I can agree with that because I refuse to debate fundamentalists. Yeah. But I think secretly we all know why he won't do it, because he would be devastated. So,
well, at least philosophically, I mean, you know, if he was to, I mean, he's debated Roman Catholics and stuff like that, and that didn't really, I don't know. I guess it has gone well and hasn't gone well for him. I don't know. Dawkins is funny. He makes me laugh.
I think he's
funny.
In his later years, I think Richard Dawkins has realized I really didn't think that he thought that people would get as worked up as they did, because it got nasty for a while. I haven't paid much attention to it, but I don't see it as much.
No,
he's also
he
contradicting
shot
himself.
himself in the foot a lot lately with some of the comments he's made. Dawkins has. I mean,
Yeah.
he said some stuff, whether or not it was out of context or he misspoke, was really stupid. I mean, he said some stuff that's been. I mean, the thing he said about gentle pedophilia, that wasn't exactly the best PR move, I would imagine. The thing he also said with the woman on Twitter about, she was pregnant with a baby that was, going to be born more than likely with Down syndrome. And he's like, nope, try again, is essentially what he said. And I'm like, yeah, that's not helping you out any. I don't know if you realize it, but it's not.
That's kind of like Sam Harris's argument for torture. It's probably not one of the wiser things he said.
No, it's not. I mean, I think I'm not a big fan of Islam by any stretch of the imagination. I am not a fan of that religion, but like you said, it didn't help his case, and it didn't help Christopher Hitchens when he came in favor of the Iraq War either.
Yeah.
When all that was going on, of course, a lot of his intellectual prowess overshadowed that. Luckily for him, but that was another spot of his. It wasn't a very shining example, I thought, but about the only one that really. I don't know, Daniel Dennett, I don't really like him either. I mean, he said some good things, I think, but not really a big fan. I don't know.
I don't know. I always thought, Hitchens, before I became a Christian, I was a huge fan of Hitchens, the Four Horsemen. And I don't know, it just, I came to see some angst in him, and it was interesting. Before he passed away, he was asked about something about his mother, and he really went off on a rambling about his mother and how she died early on, and it almost seemed like a lot of his, I don't know, there was some kind of angst as a result of losing his mother early on. I don't know, and he's not here anymore. I think it's sad, but
yeah, I think he was a needed voice, regardless of whether somebody agreed with his philosophical or religious ideas, because he was somebody. He did not cower down. He did not mince words with anyone. And that type of transparency and honesty, at least in reporting, he was obviously a journalist, is something that I terribly miss, because even for example, one of my favorite examples is when, Jerry Falwell died back in 2007. He was totally unapologetic and unwavering, regardless of what the public sentiment was. And he hated the man. He really did. He said, if you had cremated him in a match, if you had cremated him, he could have been, buried in a matchbox. He hated him, which I think is extraordinarily clever, because my feelings from Jerry Falwell are not that far removed. Also because my mother graduated from his school, and me being, a little hey doesn't necessarily sit well in my family. But
have your parents accosted you over that?
It's God. It's a white elephant in the room now. It's not something that's discussed anymore. It's just, let's get together on Sunday nights and watch Walking Dead and Downton Abbey, and that's basically the extent of my relationship with me and my mother.
Yeah.
That's about it.
I love Downton Abbey myself.
Oh, I do too. I absolutely love it. Last episode was really good. Important thing about the puppy, though. They ought to just kill Thomas, but anyway, that's beside the point. Lady Violet is awesome. I don't care what anybody says.
That is me and my wife's favorite character on there.
Well, it's hard not to. I mean, Maggie Smith, she kills at every line that she delivers. They give her the best lines for a reason.
What heavens?
Before we're done, I guess we're done with the Noachide bit, right?
Well, I don't know. I'm sorry if I hijacked it or anything, but that's the aspect. I just ramble on. You have to reel me in.
I guess I got caught up too.
Downton Abbey, it's very easy to lose sense of time and space. So.
I like it because it's good and clean. It's good, clean programming.
Well, I like it because it's such a change from American programming. It's subtle, it's nuanced. I mean, I love vulgarity in programming as much as I guess any American for the most part. I love vulgarities and trash, but once a week I like to have a change of pace because I get bored so easily, and Downton provides that.
Right on.
Yeah, do something different.
Reuven, you want to wrap up the live part, or